Sup, my fellas, don't forget to leave feedback and enjoy the story. 5,000 years ago, during the Age of Despair, humanity was on the brink of extinction. Before us is a scroll covered in hieroglyphs. To save the rapidly collapsing world, 4 great heroes went out to fight against Erebos, the spawn of evil. We see a blonde with pointy ears and a staff. The first of them was the elf archmage, the astrologer Luna. Before us is a dwarf. This is the second hero, the divine blacksmith Duino. We see a young man with animal ears. This is the third hero, the great warrior from among the beastmen, Aaron. Before us is another character, under whom we see a dragon. This is the last, but incredibly important hero, Lysinus. The scroll we see seems endless. 5,000 years ago, we see a warrior lying on the ground. Now before us is a battlefield strewn with corpses. The young man generates yellow energy. Someone calls out to a character named Kyle. A dragon is visible above the guy's head. A young man asks someone not to talk. His interlocutor asks to take his dragon heart and finish what he started. The guy, whose mouth is bleeding, asks the dragon to shut up as he is going to save him. He replies that it is too late. We see the dragon's eye. The guy once again demands that he stop talking as it prevents him from concentrating on healing. We see the eyes of the blonde. The dragon looks at the young man standing in front of him. He asks if Kyle remembers their first meeting. The dragon says that they will save this world. Kyle grinds his teeth in rage. He calls his interlocutor a stupid lizard. The dragon apologizes for leaving everything to the young man. The monster's eye closes. A human hand reaches for the dragon's heart. The dragon names Lysinus, Aaron, Duino, and Luna. The dragon's heart, emitting streams of blue energy, is in the guy's hand. We see that in the center of this organ there is something like a rhombus. The dragon thanks all the listed characters for being with him. We see a human figure and a powerful white energy column above it. Now only white energy remains. In front of us is a black human figure with glowing eyes. The young man says that he will definitely do it. A terrifying monster rises above the guy's head. The hero says that he will do it even if his body burns to ashes, at any cost. In front of us are red eyes and a clawed paw. The blonde grits his teeth in rage. He promises to destroy. We see a sword in his hand. The young man's weapon emits streams of white energy. The guy specifies that he will destroy the enemy's soul. It is reported that in front of us is the hero of the origin, Kyle. With a face distorted with rage, the guy rushes to the attack. He loudly shouts the name of his enemy, Erebos. In front of us is the hero's white sword. Someone's hand turns the page of the book. We hear that on the night the great explosion echoed across the sky, thanks to the sacrifice of the great queen Lysinus, the evil creature Erebos was banished from this world. A baby's cry is heard. Someone says that Rina has read this book for the 100th time. The woman holding the book smiles. She says that this is Leo's favorite book, and this can easily be verified. The woman calls her baby and offers to read Heroes at the Source again. The red-eyed baby looks up, not very pleased. The reading begins. Long ago, before we can remember, 5,000 years ago to be exact, Leo makes sounds typical of a child of this age. The woman holding the book says that the baby really likes this story. The baby, meanwhile, clenches his fists in anger. He mentally begs the woman to stop reading him this nonsense and does not understand where she sees joy on his face. Rihanna once again informs us that 5,000 years ago, a great victory took place. We see a warrior holding the severed head of an enemy. The child cannot understand what a victory took place means. He was the one who defeated Erebos. We see black corpses lying on the ground. In front of us are the angry faces of the child and the guy we saw at the beginning. Leo does not understand why he is the only one who is not mentioned in this book. We see a book and many pages hovering above it. We see a magnificent building. It is reported that this is the Deland School. Inside, someone asks for a moment of attention. A blonde teacher stands in front of the students. He says that, as the students should know, they are now living in the age of heroes. In front of us is something like a cross or a sword hilt. The teacher declares that the hero protocol has existed in this world for 5,000 years. The teacher stands behind a lectern in front of a blackboard. He says that during this time, the usual life has changed beyond recognition. The young man puts his hand to his chest and declares that now the Delana School has been chosen as the venue for the entrance exams to Lumen Academy. The teacher clenches his fist joyfully. He does not even doubt that among the students there will be heroes who will pass this exam, and one day they will be included in the protocol. And for this they must. The teacher's speech is interrupted by loud snoring. The young man sees a student dozing off at the back of the class. He first asks him to pay attention during the lesson, and then calls out to Leo. The hero reluctantly raises his head. The teacher says that if Leo knows the material and lectures so well that they put him to sleep, then he must know the answer to the question of what ritual had to be completed 5,000 years ago to become a hero. The guy gets up from his seat and hesitantly moans. Rubbing the back of his head, the boy states that all you had to do was do something extraordinary, and people would bow down to you. It is reported that this is 15-year-old Leo Plove of the Plove clan. The teacher sighs heavily and puts his hand to his forehead. He asks the students if anyone has any ideas on this matter. Someone raises their hand. It is the red-haired boy who sits at the next desk to the hero. The young man states that in ancient times there was no way to earn the recognition of the gods, so heroes were selected through a sacred ritual. We see a warrior dressed in armor with a halo around his head. The student, who is looked at by the hero with displeasure, states that a blood ritual can be used as an example. The teacher standing at the podium says that this is an excellent answer, and nothing else can be expected from the greatest magical genius that Gullivan is. The student who gave the answer smiles, folding his hands in front of him on the desk. It is reported that this is Gullivan Tratton of the Tratton House. The teacher states that the school has high hopes for this boy in the upcoming exam. The hero, sighing heavily, looks at the book. Judging by the expression on his face, the young man is very dissatisfied. He thinks that meeting the gods back then was a piece of cake and there were no holy rituals. We see several characters who lived 5,000 years ago. Leo reflects on the miracle sent by the gods to the lower world to celebrate the victory of the great heroes over Erebos, which is the hero protocol. The young man throws the book on the desk. Leo looks thoughtfully into the distance. He does not understand why such honors passed by only him. We are reminded that this is in fact the reincarnated great hero Kyle. The hero's classmates crowded by the window, and he himself sits at the desk. The children shout that someone appeared here. One of them notices the emblem of the Zerdinger family. A procession is marching along the corridor of the school. The children are shouting enthusiastically. Someone recognizes Celia Zerdinger. Leo gets up from his seat. He hears an announcement that all students must gather in the assembly hall, where a meeting with guests from the Zerdinger family will take place. Gullivan, smiling, looks at his classmate. He asks if he is going to do something to attract the attention of the guests, who, it seems, do not care about him at all. Leo says that he was actually going home. The guy turns away from his classmate with disdain and says that, unlike him, he is not interested in all this nonsense. Gullivan, his face distorted with anger, shouts that he is also completely indifferent to her. He just wanted to look at Celia Zerdinger as a future rival. The hero waves his hand. Gullivan offendedly shouts that this is indeed the truth. Leo is standing in a martial arts gym. A young man is holding a pole. We see his hand. Leo thinks that although this is not surprising, given the regular training, the body he has acquired is many times better than the one he had in his past life. The hero goes outside. Someone asks what he is thinking about here. Leo turns to face the speaker. A woman flies up to him with a sword in her hand. Leo puts the weapon in front of him and blocks the blow. The young man and the woman stand opposite each other with weapons in their hands. Leo says that it is unfair to attack him so abruptly from an ambush. The opponent says that they have not warmed up like this for a long time. We see the woman's face up close. She says that meager talent is not good enough for Lumen Academy. The woman holds the sword with both hands. She shouts that this is the final test for Leo. The young man blocks the blow again, albeit with difficulty. The opponents look angrily into each other's eyes. The woman asks if she needs to act even more harshly. The air is streaked with the marks of sword blows. Leo screams that his mother's displays of love are too rough. The woman raises her sword once again. She notices that although her son says so, he blocks every single blow. Riene, having made several jumps, rushes into another attack. We see her frightened red eye. The woman thinks that she hit too hard. The sword ends up a few centimeters from the young man's face. Riena thinks with horror what will happen if Leo cannot block this blow. The young man, however, easily moves away, and the weapon passes near his face. The hero looks at his mother strangely. We see the sword that he holds in his hand. The tip of the weapon is reflected in the red eye. The woman is sitting on the floor. The sword that fell from her hand lies next to her. Leo asks his mother if everything is okay. The tip of the young man's sword is at the woman's throat. She thinks that the talent of this child is difficult to measure. Rihanna stands up in front of her son and asks him if he still wants to go to Lumen. In front of us is the building of the institution she is talking about. This is the Human Hero Academy, Lumen. The hero is standing in front of a tall mirror. He thinks that out of all the hero academies of the 4 races included in the hero protocol, this is the one with the highest chance of finding records of his past. Smiling at his mother, Leo says that of course he really wants to go there. The mother and son stand opposite each other. The woman says that members of the Zerdinger clan who visited Delan will arrive here soon. They will stay at their estate. The hero asks again, surprised. The woman confirms that this is exactly how it will be. Of course, she does not really want to, but she will ask Zeiss to do her a favor. After all, he is the first deputy head of the family. Maybe he will agree to teach the boy the Zerdinger aura techniques. The mother strokes the child's head. She says that this should be enough to enter Lumen Academy next year. Leo repeats his mother's phrase about the Zerdinger aura technique. We see a smile on the young man's face. He intends to enter the academy this year. In front of a magnificent building, there are rows of knights. A carriage pulls up. Leo does not understand why his uncle decided to stop here. Someone gets out of the carriage. The hero thinks that his uncle could easily book an entire hotel for himself. In front of us is a girl in a white suit. It is reported that this is 15-year-old Celia Zerdinger, the sword princess of the Zerdinger clan. Next to the girl is a suitcase. She thinks that she wants to focus on the entrance exams to Lumen Academy, and here is some seedy mansion of a small clan. Why did she have to come here? Someone calls the girl from the carriage. In front of us is Zeiss Zerdinger, the deputy head of the Zerdinger clan. He asks the girl if she is curious about what this Leo is like, for he dared to say that he was not at all interested in their family. The girl, raising her hand, says that Leo is a promising knight who has not yet mastered the aura. She does not think there is anything outstanding about him. The man laughs and declares that, in his opinion, everything is not so simple. We see a huge hall, along which a maid in a white coat is pushing suitcases on a cart. Zeiss Zerdinger bows and declares that it is a great honor for him to meet the hosts. The woman, smiling, greets the guest. We are reminded that her name is Rihanna Plove. Next to her stands Dade Plove, the head of the family. Zeiss, smiling, puts forward his right hand. He tells his daughter that before her is the Marquis of Plove. The father asks the girl to introduce herself as is proper. The girl puts her hand to her chest. She declares that her name is Celia Zerdinger. We see the girl's face. She thanks the hosts for agreeing to shelter them for a week. Rihanna approaches a young girl. She says she is pleased to meet her. The woman thinks that Celia looks a lot like her father and uncle. We see a close-up of the girl's eye. She realizes that Rihanna has red eyes and black hair. Is she also of their lineage? We see a coat of arms with a crown behind the woman. Relatives from two families stand on a magnificent red carpet. Zeiss tells his daughter that Rihanna, on top of everything else, is her aunt. The maids take away the guest's luggage. Zeiss says that they first looked into Delana's school. We see a plate with blocks. The man says that it was absolute chaos there. The students were running back and forth like crazy. Zeiss and Rihanna sit at a round table. The man says that the only one untouched by all this excitement was Leo. He was so indifferent that he went straight home. The mother remarks that this must be a very strong blow to the pride of the venerable Zerdingers. The woman laughs merrily. She apologizes if her son's behavior seemed disrespectful. This boy is not interested in anything at all except training. In front of us is a cup of tea. Zeiss asks what kind of child this is. The hero is already fighting someone. The woman stirs the tea with a spoon. She declares that he is an incredibly gifted boy. Zeiss looks at the woman and asks if his older sister really believes that Leo could have inherited the Zerdinger flame. She replies that she is not saying this because he is her son. The boy delivers a powerful blow, which the girl standing opposite blocks. The mother says that her son himself deserves this praise. Zeiss, smiling, declares that his sister has interested him. The man's expression suddenly becomes threatening. He declares that, nevertheless, he needs to see everything for himself. The hero, who is holding a sword, smiles. Leo is sitting on the floor in the lotus position. We can see his hand. Now in front of us is the young man's left eye. Leo excitedly declares that it has finally happened. The vessel is capable of holding all the power, complete. In front of us is a human figure that glows with white energy. The hero thinks that he still has not mastered the aura, because as soon as he absorbs it, it encounters a natural discrepancy with this body. A drop of sweat runs down the cheek of the human figure. We see vague outlines with two red flashes. A terrible clawed paw hangs over the corpses scattered on the ground. The hero in a cloak looks at all this. Leo thinks that the ability to accumulate mana and spiritual energy is disappearing. If in his past life he could completely control the power and energy of the dead guys, such a catastrophe would never have happened. He thinks that in this life he must master complete control, and the first thing he must do is the aura. We see someone's legs. The hero is asked if his name is really Leo Plove. The guy turns around. In front of him is a girl in a white suit. This is Celia, with a magnificent bow with an amazing decoration on her neck. The girl notices that the hero's base seems to be at a decent level. She says that she is ready to help and improve his swordsmanship. The girl thinks that this can allow her to earn her aunt's favor. Leo asks who is in front of him. The girl, smiling, answers that she is Celia Zerdinger. We see her face up close. The girl says that she is known to the public as the Sword Princess. Leo stands in front of Celia. He thanks her for her concern, but refuses to learn from someone whose skills are inferior to his own. Celia is indignant. She asks if the young man wants to say that he is stronger than her. The young men stand opposite each other. The guy says that perhaps in a fight to the death she will be stronger because he cannot use aura yet. But if we take into account only swordsmanship, this is a completely different matter. The hero smiles sweetly, looking at the girl. In front of us is Celia's right eye. Behind her back, racks with weapons are visible. Taking the sword in her hands, Celia goes to the young man. She says that if he is so confident in his strength, they need to spar. The girl smiles. She mentally asks the young man if he really thinks that by mastering the aura he will become stronger than her. Celia wants to confront him with harsh reality. She says that if he defeats the young man, then for the next week he will be her personal servant. Leo, smiling, asks what will happen if he wins. The girl puts forward a wooden sword. Smiling, she says that in this case she will be the servant. The hero's hand falls on the sword. Raising the weapon, the young man makes it clear that he is ready to begin. We see the trace of the jump. The opponents exchange blows. Celia holds the wooden sword in her right hand. She thinks that the speed of her opponent is not so bad. However, this is not enough. The hero rushes towards the girl. The guy raises his weapon. He hits the sword put out by the girl. Celia realizes that her opponent is physically very strong. The girl flies back. Leo holds the sword in his hand, stretched back. Celia looks at her opponent in fear. She understands that she will not be able to block this. The guy strikes and hits the right side of the girl's head. Leo looks at Celia in bewilderment. He says that the shield from the aura goes beyond normal fencing. The girl looks at her opponent intently and says that it was just a reflex. Leo says that he will still win. Celia looks at the young man angrily. She asks him to repeat what he said. The girl indignantly shouts that with and without the aura, it's like night and day. The young man unfastens something on his hand. He offers to test the girl's statement in practice. Celia looks on in amazement as the bracelet falls in front of her. She realizes that it is a magical weight. Leo smiles. We see the trace of the jump again. The hero flies up to his opponent and hits her on the forehead with his sword. His weapon shatters into pieces. Celia screams loudly. The girl cannot believe what has just happened to her. We see the hero's eyes. Celia cannot understand where such a crazy monster came from. Zais and Rina walk past the wall of a magnificent palace. The mother, seeing her son, calls him. The woman points to the man standing next to her. She asks her son to meet the guest of their house. The young man bows politely. He states that his name is Leo Plov. The man extends his hand. He says that his name is Zais Zerdinger. He assumes that the young man already knows that he is his uncle. They shake hands. The mother asks her son if he has seen Celia yet. Leo hums guiltily, and behind him, two warriors are carrying a girl on a stretcher. Judging by her face, Celia has suffered both physically and mentally. One of the warriors calls the young lady, asks how this could have happened, and immediately demands that she be taken to the infirmary as soon as possible. Zais approaches one of the warriors and asks him what happened. The uncle looks thoughtfully at his nephew. The man tries to understand if this boy was really able to defeat Celia without using aura. Zais approaches the hero. He says that he is already able to defeat Celia, and this is very impressive. Leo declares that the girl herself underestimated him. Zais, smiling, asks what they bet on. Leo imagines himself sitting on the girl. He declares that the loser will serve the winner for the next week. That is, Celia will be his maid. The blonde man, with the girl's father standing behind him, smiles happily. Zais sternly states that keeping one's word is great, but Celia is still the heiress of the Zerdinger house. She cannot do housework. Uncle and nephew stand opposite each other. Zais extends his hand to the boy. He expresses the hope that he will reconsider the terms of the deal. In exchange, he is ready to offer him another reward. Leo refuses. Zais looks at his nephew in amazement. The boy boldly looks at the man and says that Celia herself proposed this bet. Let her be punished if she values the name of her family. The hero looks at his uncle's hand. He says that he can teach the boy the Zerdinger breathing technique for controlling the aura if he changes his mind. Leo smiles cheerfully. He believes that the breathing technique, proposed to prevent the girl's humiliation, is of no use to him. Zais looks at the hero sternly, calls him Leo Plov, and reminds him that he is going to use the direct heir of the Zerdinger family as a servant. It also turns out that the hero is hinting that the family technique, belonging to the Zerdinger family, is worth nothing. Zais asks the hero to clarify whether he understood everything correctly. Leo, smiling, answers that everything is correct. Zais asks if the young man does not consider all this very rude. He replies that he did not mean to insult the Zerdingers. Leo respectfully puts his hand to his chest. He states that if Sir Zais taught him the breathing technique as a reward for defeating Celia, he would gladly accept this offer. But now it turns out that the man just wants to cover up his daughter's defeat. One of the soldiers runs up to Zais and reports that the lady has woken up. Leo states that Zais deep down thinks that if Celia had not let her guard down, she would never have lost. However, even if the girl had taken the fight seriously, she would still have been defeated. Before us is Reincarnates. We see the lower part of the man's face. He thinks that the boy refused because he did not like his uncle's attitude towards him. This is a very unusual child. Zais would very much like this child to belong to the Zerdinger family. Zais calls two fighters to him. He orders them to send Celia to the maids. The young men look at their master in amazement. The man, smiling, looks at his nephew. He calls out to him. The young man makes it clear that he is listening to Sir Zeiss. The man states that this is not an official event, so Leo can simply call him uncle. Zeiss puts his hand on his nephew's shoulder. He immediately calls him uncle. Zeiss watches the boy leave. He turns to his sister and reminds her that she asked him to teach her son the Zerdinger breathing techniques. Rina looks at her brother in surprise. Putting his hand on his belt, he declares that he will try to convince his older brother to teach Leo the Phoenix Breath. In front of us is a room with a huge bed. We see the girl's red eye. She declares that her name is Celia, she is a maid and will serve the hero for the next week. We see that the heiress of a noble family is wearing a maid suit. She calls the guy young Master Leo. Leo, who is holding a book, declares that this outfit suits the girl. Who would have thought that her daring style would fit so well into a simple maid suit? Celia does not look very pleased. The hero says that the combination is simply wonderful. The girl's hands are shaking with anger. She understands perfectly well that everything suits her, but such compliments are beyond the bounds of permissible. The guy apologizes. He says that he did not mean to anger the girl. We see an elegant jug that someone is holding in their hands. Leo says that he had one friend who valued beauty too much, and it seems that he was the one who infected him with it. Leo sighs. He remembers his friend's words about the beauty of eternity being incomparable to anything. In front of us is a beautiful mosaic window. Now we see a gnome sitting next to a deer and a hare. This character wanted, if peace returned to the earth, to spend the rest of his life spreading beauty everywhere. Celia sighs and says that the guy had a good friend who understood and appreciated beauty. Leo thinks that this friend's problem was only an excessive honesty. In front of us are two girls, one of whom is holding a staff. Duino thinks that Lysena's was perfection, although she had an aggressive character. The same was true for Luna. We see the gnome's profile. He asks for a nude pose for him in the name of art. The gnome's comrades look at him in bewilderment. He says that he even took a sketchbook with him. The gnome's friends trample him into the ground. The sketchbook is torn to pieces. Celia looks at something in surprise. She tries to figure out if it is a training book. The girl asks the boy what he is reading. The hero's hand is on the book. He picks it up and says that he used to read it a lot when he was a child. It is called Great Heroes at the Source. Celia remembers herself at the age of 5. She is amazed that the hero is talking about a history book. We see the girl's right eye. She moves across the room towards the bookcase. Celia looks at the books that are there. She says that the hero apparently likes exactly these kinds of books. The average researcher of great heroes cannot compare to him in terms of knowledge. We see 2 shelves with books. The hero says that he just started collecting them, and then everything happened by itself. Celia raises her hand. She takes one of the books from the shelf. The girl says that there are a lot of books about Kyle. Leo says that among the deeds of great heroes, there are some that are difficult to attribute to any of them. The young man smiles. He says that, in his opinion, these achievements belong to Kyle. Celia, who is holding a book in her hands, indignantly declares that Kyle is just a liar who has sucked up to other people's achievements. Leo looks at the girl with displeasure. He asks why she treats Kyle like that. Celia, continuing to look at the books, says that most people think so, and, of course, she does too. The hero realizes that people have not remembered him in the most fair way. The young man gets up from his chair and says that it is time for breakfast and then to go to training. Celia, smiling, asks the young gentleman to let her train with him. Inwardly, she hopes to find out the secret of the young man's strength. Leo heads for the door. He asks if the girl will cry if she does not keep up with him. Celia clenches her fists in anger. She screams that she is actually Celia Zerdinger. Having received a blow, the girl crouches on the floor. Leo, who is standing next to her, states that when Celia is tired, her reaction slows down significantly and there are too many gaps in her defense. She often opens her back, as happened now. The girl looks at the boy tiredly. She asks if torturing the body really helps in training. Leo stands, placing a wooden sword on his shoulders. He states that this is exactly how it is, and that today's youth are too self-pitying. The hero thinks that aura techniques have advanced significantly compared to the past. Apparently, this is the reason why people have stopped paying due attention to training the body. Celia rises with difficulty, leaning on her sword. She asks the hero to clarify something. He thinks that aura allows you to strengthen the body, but if you train the body, the effectiveness of aura will only increase. Leo sighs and shrugs. Celia holds out her sword. She loudly shouts at the hero not to underestimate her. The girl calls the boy a blonde puppy. Celia charges in. Leo strikes and hits the target. Celia flies back and falls awkwardly on her back. She asks, offended, why she can't defeat her opponent. The hero stands next to her and asks if the girl is having a hard time. He hands her the bracelet. Celia thanks the guy. The weight turns out to be so heavy that the girl's hands hit the floor painfully. Leo says that she just took a magic weight. Smiling maliciously, the guy declares that from now on the girl will wear it during training. We see a sandy training field. Celia, with Zeiss standing behind her, irritably demands that they stop. The man thoughtfully rubs his chin. He thinks that this will be a good experience for the girl before entering Lumen Academy. It will even be nice if someone pinches her pride a little. Leo hears Zeiss calling him. The young man approaches the man and calls him uncle. Zeiss says that he is thinking about asking the head of the clan to allow the young man to learn the phoenix breathing technique. Leo looks at his uncle in surprise. We see a magnificent firebird and a man with his hands raised. The hero thinks that the phoenix breathing is the original breathing technique of the Zerdinger clan. As far as he knows, only recognized members of the family can learn it. Celia indignantly shouts that her father will not give his consent so easily. Zeiss stands near the tree, arms crossed over his chest. He says that this is why he has a condition. The girl asks to clarify which one. The man, looking at the young people, declares that Leo must successfully pass the entrance exams to Lumen Academy. Celia exclaims in amazement that the entrance exams there are a real fight. The girl angrily shouts that this runt cannot even use aura. It will be too dangerous for him. Leo, meanwhile, smiles. He says that it would be interesting to try himself in a real fight. The young man remembers himself before reincarnation. In his mind, he adds to the previous phrase that, at least in this life. Raising his left hand, Zeiss asks what the young man's answer will be. He asks about his father and mother. The man says that they are not against it. Leo, smiling, says that then he will gladly do it. We see the lower part of the man's face. Zeiss guessed that the hero himself planned to take this exam, and now his suspicions have been confirmed. Leo says that the break is over and invites the girl to continue. She rushes after the guy and promises to definitely catch up with him. A week later, we see many students. It is reported that the day of the entrance exams to Lumen Academy has arrived. We hear the comments of those gathered. Someone says that he sees Celia Zerdinger. Another student says that he could not even dream of seeing the Sword Princess in person. A third asks who is this guy next to her. Celia, smiling, asks if the young gentleman standing next to her is nervous. The hero replies that he is not worried at all. He asks the girl how long she will call him gentleman. Celia screams she is very awkward. Someone calls the girl by name. She turns around at the voice. In front of us is a red-haired guy. He looks at the hero and calls him by name. Gullivan asks what the hero is doing here because he does not even have an aura. After that, he turns to the girl and says that they have not seen each other for a long time. The guy asks how she has been. Leo and Celia ignore the young man. The guy puts his hand to his chest and reminds that his name is Gullivan Tratton. They met the time Celia visited their school. Gullivan says that he is considered the greatest talent at the Delane school. Celia, folding her arms over her chest, frankly says that she does not remember the young man. She grabs the hero's hand. After declaring that the conversation is over, Celia pulls Leo away from Gullivan. Someone calls the girl loudly again. She turns around. Celia and Leo look at someone in surprise. In front of them are two blondes of a very cute appearance. It is reported that they are 16-year-old Abad Llewellyn and 14-year-old Chelsea Llewellyn. The young men greet the girl. The blondes approach the hero and his companion. They loudly call out to Celia. We see a clenched fist. Leo asks who they are. Celia states that they are the Llewellyn brother and sister. The girl looks at the blondes with hostility and states that they are from the League of Heroes of the Lordran Empire and descendants of the Llewellyn family. An unkind fire lights up in Celia's eyes. She declares that if these two get in their way, they must not lose to them under any circumstances. The Zerdingers cannot afford to be defeated by the Llewellyns. Leo states, with good reason, that he is actually of the Plo family. The brother and sister look at the hero and his companion, smiling. Abad tells Celia that they haven't seen each other for a long time. The brunette steps forward a little and states that it has indeed been quite a while since their last meeting. Abad asks who is next to the girl. Celia, crossing her arms over her chest, replies that it is Leo from the Plove house. This is a rather famous aristocratic family in the Kingdom of Devon. We see the guy's right eye. He replies that everything is clear to him and that he is a small fry. The hero calmly looks at the guy. Abad promises that first place will be his. He turns around and takes his sister with him. She also expresses confidence in her victory. Celia looks after the departing blondes with displeasure. She calls them arrogant idiots and states that she really wants to crush them. A teacher stands at the dais in front of the young people. He says that it seems that everyone has gathered. Leo and Celia stare at this man. It is reported that before us is Professor Albizeron of the Lumen Academy. The teacher introduces himself. Celia looks at him in amazement and says that this cannot be. Could this really be the same Albizeron, the sorcerer of Mon? The hero standing next to him asks who he is. The girl turns to her companion and asks if he really does not know who this person is. How can one not know the one who is included in the hero protocol? Leo understands that this is one of the recognized heroes of this era. The guy raises his head and looks at the teacher appraisingly. We see him with a stack of papers in his hand. Leo notes that the mana in Albizeron's left eye is definitely worthy of attention. Two emblems are visible above the professor's head. He states that the candidates will face a test in the form of a one-on-one fight as well as a fight with a monster. They will perform in turns. A flame appears under the young man's hand. He states that these methods, in his opinion, are too boring. The professor, standing in front of the students who are staring at him, raises his hand. In front of us is a book with a blue cover. Albizeron raises his index finger. System notifications appear. First, about the opening of the hero protocol, and then about loading Albizeron's world. A huge magical formation appears under the feet of the candidates. It is announced that they will be transported to the prologue, Wild Forest chapter. The professor puts his hand forward, his palm generating yellow energy. Albizeron declares that he hates ineffective methods. Celia, with her mouth open, looks at the teacher with fear. In front of us is a yellow eye emitting energy. The professor declares that he will simply combine everything into one test. We see the hero, and he seems relatively calm. The boy remembers how he sat in the classroom in front of the teacher. He thinks that the hero protocol is not just a historical guide. Its true value lies in its ability to create separate worlds containing the experiences of heroes of the past. In front of us is an open book. Now we see a sword, a dragon, and knights. The most important thing is that by immersing yourself in the hero's world, you can inherit his power. We see a knight kneeling in front of a gray-haired old man. Now we see a feather and an 8-pointed star. The hero thinks that this is some kind of training system for heroes. Leo looks ahead. We see his red eye. Young people, armed with whatever, stand under the trees. It is reported that they are in the wild forest. Leo thinks that this is the hero's world. Albizeron tells the students the rules of the test. This place is called the Wild Forest. The goal is simply to survive. You can team up and kill each other. That is, you can do whatever you want. The main thing is to survive. If someone wants to give up, you just need to break the sphere. That's all. The candidates, including Leo, look around. Someone asks where the sound is coming from. The hero thinks that this place has not changed at all. We see a young man's shoe. He remembers the lovely tree houses that used to be here. Leo knows that this was an elven forest until Silatna, the witch queen, poisoned it. The hero looks anxiously to his left. Someone next to him says that he is scared. Something glows brightly behind the trees in front of the young people. Someone shouts out that he really wants to go home. One of the guys declares that this is just an illusion and calls his nervous friend a coward. An owl sits on a tree branch. Leo thinks that the young man has just told a lie. Although this world is created from the examiner's memories, everything that happens here is absolutely real. We see a blood stain. Leo thinks that any threat to life can really kill someone. The guy looks ahead with concern. Something is stuck into the ground right in front of him, leaving a bright trace in the air. We see that it is an arrow. In front of us is someone's shoe. Its owner says that he has already met the hero. In front of us is Chelsea Llewellyn. Putting her hand on the tree, she declares that she will only be glad to get rid of the henchmen of the Zerdinger family. The hero looks at her and calmly says that he belongs to the Plow family. The blonde pulls her hand back and angrily asks why the young man then stuck to Celia. She waves her staff and uses the wind sickle skill. Leo, who looks at the girl completely calmly, thinks that such a spell did not exist in the past. But the basic principles have remained unchanged. A sword appears in the guy's hands. Chelsea, smiling, looks at the young man. She says that she is actually his opponent and he did not even bother to tense up. Leo continues to look at the girl calmly. She raises her hands and starts spinning 2 shafts. She throws objects spinning madly in the air at the guy. Leo easily blocks one of them. Then the same thing happens with the following projectiles. Chelsea looks at her opponent in surprise. She cannot understand how he blocked her attack. She did not even feel how he emitted an aura. Perhaps he has an aura of an elusive attribute. Leo sighs and smiles. He says that the attack was very obvious and suggests joining forces. The guy declares that whoever holds out longer will score more points here. Passing at least one test is already a great success. Chelsea giggles. We see the young man's left eye. The girl smiles. She declares that, unfortunately for her opponent, she is a battle mage. The opponents stand opposite each other. Chelsea asks if Leo really thought her attack was simple. The hero, smiling, raises his left hand. He apologizes for saying it out loud. It was just too straightforward an attack for wind magic. Compared to its potential, of course. We see the girl's left eye. She indignantly asks if the guy is going to lecture her on how to best use her ancestral power. She is, mind you, a direct heir to the Llewellyn family. The girl puts her staff forward and angrily screams that she is going to kick the guy's ass with these very simple attacks. The girl uses the wind sickle and wind arrow skills. More spinning projectiles fly at the hero. However, at some point the girl notices that the enemy has disappeared. We see the blonde's astonished eyes. She does not even feel a hint of mana and cannot understand how this is even possible. Leo flies up to her with his fist raised to strike. Chelsea looks at the approaching enemy with horror in her eyes. The axe that the girl was armed with flies high into the air. Chelsea falls to her knees in front of the enemy. Leo clenches his fist. He says that this is the last time he politely offers to join forces. People sitting at their desks in the hall are looking at a huge blue screen. Someone shouts in delight that it has finally begun. There is a bright flash. Chelsea is tied to a pole. Leo is sitting in front of her and stirring the coals in the fire. The guy smiles maliciously. Celia suddenly appears and thinks that for some reason she has a very strange feeling. The hero makes a fire in front of the pole to which Chelsea is tied. In front of us is the left eye of the blonde. The girl looks in horror at the fire flaring up under her feet and asks what it is. Leo looks at the girl tied to the pole and asks whether she will cooperate with him or not. Chelsea looks at the young man in rage and says that she will never do that. With her mouth wide open, she declares that she does not need anyone except her brother. The girl says the name of the wind sickle skill. We see a magical formation around her hand. Chelsea does not understand what is happening. Leo, who has a rope wrapped around his arm, states that this is a skill that limits the use of magic. He thinks to himself that he has very little mana and will not last long. It seems that Chelsea is trying to get out. She states that she will free herself even without the help of magic. The rope that is wrapped around the hero's arm attracts attention. The guy declares that he will not let the girl do what she has planned. The fire gets to the blonde's legs. She screams shrilly that she is very hot. Her short dress catches fire. The hero demands that Chelsea cooperate with him. The girl screams that she agrees. Leo, who is sitting next to the fire, tells Chelsea to swear by the name of her family. The girl screams that she agrees. Closing her eyes in fear, Chelsea swears by the name of the Llewellyn family that she will cooperate. Leo smiles. He thinks that children are very easy to manipulate. The hero lets go of the rope, and the girl flies up on a pole. Leo says he is very happy about the upcoming cooperation. We see the girl's eye. The young man holds Chelsea in his arms and calls her the magician Llewellyn. A huge chandelier hangs from the ceiling. The audience watches what is shown on a huge screen. Professor Albizeron is visible in the far background. We see two young men fighting. The teacher thinks that neither of them meets the standard. For some reason, these idiots chose to fight among themselves. We see the profile of the professor. He thinks that the only ones who have grasped the essence of the test are these two. We see a boy, a girl, and scraps falling next to them. Albizeron remembers that these candidates are named Celia Zerdinger and Abad Llewellyn. Albizeron thinks that the future of the nation is in good hands. In front of us is a short blonde man who is fighting a huge monster. The hero strikes with a sword and cuts off something from his opponent. Albizeron remembers that this guy is called Leo Plov. Almost roasting the girl was a completely immature move. However, recruiting Chelsea Llewellyn to cooperate is already worthy of a passing grade. We see the hero with jets of white energy rising around him. The professor thinks that this guy does not have the strength and grace of Celia or Abad, but he is something of an unpredictable dark horse. Albizeron looks at the screen from his lectern, where the hero's serious face is shown. We see an arrow flying out of the monster. The monster opens its toothy mouth wide. Chelsea looks in surprise as her ally finishes off another enemy. She admits that cooperating with the knight makes the task much easier. Folding her arms over her chest, the girl looks at the hero. She asks what attribute aura he uses. The girl cannot detect it at all. Leo admits that he does not use aura at all. The silhouette of some long-eared creature appears behind the backs of the talking young people. The girl asks in confusion how the guy can control it without an aura. He replies that he has a good base, so there are no problems. The girl's head turns black. Leo suggests taking wind magic as an example. He asks the girl what is its basis. In front of us is Chelsea's left eye. She puts her hand forward and uses the wind sickle skill. The monster that was watching the young people lies in a pool of blood. Chelsea sighs and raises her left hand. She says that teaching wind magic to a person from the Llewellyn clan is the height of impudence. Leo moves forward. He tells the girl that she is gifted, but does not know how to use her power correctly. Chelsea asks in confusion if the hero is serious about this. We see the back of the young man's head. He puts his hand forward and demands that the girl stop. In front of us is a boot. Leo squats in front of the corpses. Chelsea says that the dead look just like mummies. The hero says that he has already encountered creatures that leave their victims in this state. He thinks that he now understands the conditions for passing the exam. In front of us is a large red eye. A powerful beam of light hits the ground. The hero, covering the girl with his body, jumps to the side. Someone says that they almost got it, but first they need to get rid of Chelsea Llewellyn. Two young men appear next to the hero and his ally. The owner of the boots walks forward. He declares that the guy standing next to the girl is an obvious empty shell. Apparently, in front of us is Gullivan. He shouts to his comrades to attack at once. Leo gets to his feet. In front of us is a glowing red eye. Leo rushes into the attack and strikes with his fists. The young man knocks down one opponent and significantly scares the rest. Leo asks Chelsea to cover his back. The girl looks at the guy in fear, but says that she will do it. Gullivan orders to deal with the hero and his companion. They stand next to each other, preparing to fight the enemies. The hero's eyes emit white energy. The young man with red hair runs away. We see leaves and tree branches. The guy is not going to give up so easily. Gullivan grinds his teeth in anger, but thinks that he will just find another team now. Celia looks at the running young man in bewilderment. It seems that she recognizes him. The girl points someone in the direction they should go. Celia and Abad look at something in amazement. In front of them is the hero, Chelsea, and many lifeless bodies, including several monsters. The blonde is overjoyed to see her brother. Abad hugs his sister and exclaims that she is safe and sound. Celia asks the hero in surprise what they are doing together with Chelsea. The hero puts his hand on his head and says that he offered the girl cooperation. She is very stubborn and did not want to agree to anything. Smiling maliciously, the guy says that he was, however, very convincing. Celia asks what exactly the young man did. Leo tries to lift a girl from the ground. Chelsea looks at what the hero is doing in bewilderment. She asks why he is helping them. Leo says that they do not need to fight each other. The young people whom the hero beat up slowly come to their senses. Leo says that this world exists for fighting. They ask him if he is really going to fight the world. The hero looks thoughtfully in front of him. He says that there is an anomaly in the wild forest. Celia and Abad look around. Leo draws their attention to the corpses. A boot steps on a part of the body of a dead creature. It seems as if all the juices were squeezed out of the dead. And that's not all. Leo raises his hand and asks the young people looking at him if they saw monsters here. Celia looks at him in surprise and says that the guy seems to be right. It seems as if all the monsters hid in fear of someone else. We see 3 red stripes resembling an eye. The hero says that it seems that a high-ranking monster has settled here, displacing the other inhabitants of the forest. Abad, next to whom 2 girls are standing, says that he understands. Apparently, Albizeron wants them to kill this monster. In front of us is the hero's left eye. A short distance away from him, in the depths of the forest, he notices a white glow. 4 young people anxiously look at what is happening on that side of the forest. Leo says that the monster seems to have appeared. Gullivan, holding a staff, looks very scared. He twists his mouth and declares that he will make the hero fail at any cost. The young man notices a body in front of him. He sits down on the ground in horror and asks no one what it is. Drops of mucus fall on his staff. In front of us is the young man's right eye. Mucus is already dripping onto his face. We see a giant spider and understand that this monster is the source of the mucus. In front of us is the academy building. Albizeron, standing at his podium, looks at a huge screen. We see 2 students. One of them declares that he failed somewhere around 15-16. The second one answers that he has about the same result. Albizeron irritably declares that about 500 of them failed. A blonde man in a black jacket appears next to him. He declares that they still need to select at least 100 people, like in other regions, and after the test there are only 50 left. Albizeron adjusts his glasses. He states that if the applicants do not meet the standards, he is the best one to not admit them. The head of the Kalyan Academy put him in charge of the entrance exams, knowing everything perfectly well. The screen shows the hero supporting one of the students he beat up. Albizeron thinks that a true hero is born in difficult times. Leo Plov. It seems that this guy noticed the anomaly in the forest. We see the professor's eye, in which the hero is reflected. The guy carefully supports the suffering girl. Albizeron doubts only that this young man will be able to withstand this world. The test participants run forward. The girl with purple hair curses and says that she can't see anything. Celia holds out her sword. She warns everyone that there is something above them. They must prepare. We see the tip of the sword. The red sphere, which serves as some kind of lantern, illuminates the monster with Gullivan in its mouth. Celia and Abad look up in amazement. The girl exclaims in bewilderment. The young man declares that there is a living person up there. Abad puts out his staff and tries to use his wind sickle skill. Leo steps forward and pushes the blonde aside. He shouts for Gullivan to break the sphere and retreat. The young man looks at the hero with a suffering look and calls him by name. Gullivan crushes the blue sphere. A stream of fire shoots out of the spider's mouth. Abad, holding a glowing staff, looks at what is happening in surprise. He uses the Wind Fang skill, bringing down a stream of energy on the spider. The wound inflicted on the monster heals. The guy understands that the impact was not strong enough. The young men look at their opponent in amazement. He hangs in the air and bares his sharp teeth. The hero understands that in front of him is the spider princess Tarantula. The girl whom the hero helped takes an axe and swings at the monster. She calls the monster a nit and urges it to bite something. A moment later, she receives a strong blow and screams loudly in pain. The girl flies far away and falls painfully on her back. Celia looks angrily at the spider and declares that she will finish it off with one blow. At the end of the sword, a red sphere spins, emitting streams of white energy. The prominence skill is used. A powerful stream of energy hits the end of the staff, which makes a huge hole in the spider's body. We see that the wound on the monster's forehead is healing. Celia looks at the monster in amazement and screams that this simply cannot be. A bat is visible above her head. The guy boldly declares that the difference between the destructive power of a knight and a mage is huge, about the same as between day and night. Smiling radiantly, the young man uses the Raphael skill. A bright flash occurs above his head, from which streams of blue energy spread in all directions. They hit the monster, from whose body streams of blood gushes. Abad looks at the spider in amazement. It seems that the boy cannot believe what he sees. The monster hangs over the blonde's head and seems to be about to destroy him. Chelsea, who is very afraid for her brother, puts her hand forward with her fingers spread. She uses the skill Destructive Wind. Abad grinds his teeth in anger. We see that his shirt is torn, from under which blood is spurting. His sister runs up to the boy and asks if everything is okay. He thanks the girl for her concern. One of the students looks at the spider in amazement and asks what kind of monster it is. It has simply terrifying regeneration. The young people look at their opponent in shock. It opens its mouth wide and seems to be preparing to attack. Leo looks closely at the monster and says that it is the daughter of Silatna, the princess of Tarantulia. This is a monster from the Erebos army that destroyed the elven forest. The young men look at the monster he has drawn in amazement. In front of us is the hero's red eye. He thinks that the mana in Albizeron's left eye definitely belonged to the fairy king. The hero remembers one of the battles that happened in his past life. He thinks that Tarantulia rules in the cursed forest. She destroyed the elf forest and bit off the right hand of the fairy king who went against her. We see a girl with a black face and white hair. The hero thought that Luna killed Tarantulia, but it seems that the spider was saved by the fairy king's right hand, which ended up in the stomach. The monster bares its sharp teeth. We see the hand in question. Also in front of us is a ring with a green sphere on top. The hero thinks that, more precisely, the source of the endless life force contained in this hand is the Ring of Life. Abad, smiling, puts forward his staff. He states that if this creature is the key to success in the test, then he will take it. Celia, who is standing nearby, strongly doubts that he will succeed. The boy and the girl attack the monster at the same time. Red flashes are visible between the monster's teeth. Leo, who is standing behind the attackers, warns them that the monster will regenerate infinitely until they run out of mana. We see the monster surrounded by green splashes. Celia asks the hero what he suggests doing. The boy states that they should try to work together. Abad, smiling, looks at the young man and states that he is not going to do that. He needs the highest score. The girl states that she does not mind getting the highest score either. Leo looks at his allies and says that if they do not destroy the hero's world, they will all fail the test together. Abad and Celia look at the hero carefully. The blonde states that even if they all work together, it will take time to figure out a way to kill this creature in one go, and no one but the two of them can hold this monster off. Celia remains silent. Chelsea looks at the hero's back. Leo smiles and states that he can do it. Celia warns him that it is pure suicide because he cannot even use aura. The young man, smiling, looks ahead. He says that he knows how dangerous this is. He plans to buy himself 5 minutes at most. Abad asks anxiously what will happen if they fail. Leo looks over his shoulder at him. His hand reaches for the axe lying on the ground. He states that everything will be fine. The guy looks at his allies and states that wind and fire have always been a great pair. They will work together perfectly. Celia and Abad look at each other. The hero stands in front of a spider with a huge mouth open. He has a smile on his face. He says that all this reminds him of the old days. The boy points his axe at the monster hanging over him. The boy swings and strikes. He says he has almost forgotten this feeling. Celia and Abad look on in amazement. Leo swings and strikes again, hitting his opponent right on the head. He has a happy smile on his face. He calls the monster by name. The frightened elf runs through the forest. He is stopped by a web. The boy tries to free himself. The monster is already approaching him. A huge spider opens its terrible mouth. The elf calls for help. The child cries bitterly and calls for his mother. Someone orders the evil creature to retreat. The elf opens his eyes. He realizes that he sees light. A girl illuminated by a bright light appears not far from him. We see the lower part of this character's face. The girl accuses the monster of invading her homeland and devouring the performer's right hand. The girl unleashes powerful waves of yellow energy on the spider. We see a flash and many bright lines. A powerful yellow flash occurs in the forest. The light turns blue, clouds of white smoke rise from the ground. The girl says that no one would have thought that the filth of Erebos would reach here. The boy, entangled in the web, looks in surprise at the young man who has approached. He takes the web in his hand and begins to tear it. The guy asks if the elf is okay. We see the hero's face. He holds an axe in his hands with a serious look. The guy understands that, as he thought, this was his limit without mana. Leo calls Chelsea. A frightened blonde, holding a staff in her hands, answers. The hero, who is standing in front of the girl, asks her to use wind magic and direct all the weapons lying on the ground towards him. We see a powerful white flash. Chelsea screams in fear that if the guy moves, the weapons can hurt him in the air. Leo looks over his shoulder at his ally and asks her not to be afraid. He will intercept everything she sends him. The girl just needs to hurry. A blue sphere lights up in front of Chelsea. She asks what kind of weapon the young man needs. He replies that any kind. Rock fragments are visible above the young man's head. The girl stretches out her hand with her fingers spread out. We see the hero's eye. He determines by the sound that a yatagan and a longsword are flying towards him. Leo jumps up and finds himself high above the monster's head. In his hands we see the weapons that the girl placed in front of him. In front of us is a red eye. Its owner asks the enemy to bite this off too. Leo makes a series of sharp jumps and delivers many blows. The sword he is holding in his hand breaks. The guy demands that the girl send him additional weapons. Chelsea works her hands with concentration. Several types of weapons fly towards the hero. Leo makes a sharp swing and sends a projectile with a shiny tip at the spider. Now he uses a weapon with a long handle. Some say that Leo is their age, but this spectacle is no less than that of a god of battle. We see the hero's face again. Now we see Celia's left eye. Abad, with his mouth slightly open, looks at his ally. He declares that this is far from being a small fry. Blood is oozing from the wound. We see that it is under the hero's eye. The guy thinks that he is still capable of something. His comrades from his past life will turn over in their graves if he cannot crush this bug. The young man takes the sword with both hands. Leo delivers a powerful blow and demands that Chelsea send him some more weapons. The girl screams in fear that there is nothing else. Fear appears on the hero's face. Someone calls out loudly to the young man. It is Celia, who has put her weapon in front of her. She tells her ally that the spell has already been prepared and he should step aside. Calling the spider a creepy crawly, the girl unleashes a powerful wave of yellow energy on it. The monster burns. A ring falls to the ground. The young people stand in front of the monster's disfigured corpse. A message appears that the chapter prologue, Wild Forest of the Albizeron world, has been completed. Celia, smiling, sits on the ground and says that it's over. The girl looks at the hero standing with his back to her. She thinks that this young man held off the monster for 5 whole minutes. The girls express their joy loudly. Celia shouts at the hero that he did an excellent job. Chelsea, clenching her fists, screams that it was simply amazing. The blonde is simply ecstatic. She declares that Leo looked just like a legendary hero. Leo, sighing, asks again. Chelsea still shouts exaltedly that she wants to become a battle mage, so she always strives to learn more about close combat. She is a complete layman in this matter and asks the hero to teach her. Celia smiles sarcastically. She declares that she would not wish Leo's training on anyone. His hand reaches for the ring. The young man realizes that it fell from a monster. The hero examines it. A winged creature appears above the young man's head. Leo realizes that this is Prince Silid. We see the face of this character up close. The hero, smiling, looks at him and asks if he remembers him. He is Kyle. Silid smiles, closing his eyes. Streams of yellow energy rise from the ring. The hero thinks that this creature has managed to become the king of the fairies. Leo assumes that Albizeron owns the Eye of Mana because of this treasure. We see deep cracks. An announcement is made about the beginning of the countdown until the test site is returned to its original state. The countdown begins. It is reported that the reward for completing is the Oath of the Fairy King. A ghostly figure in a hood stands in front of the hero. Some cubes fall down. We see the hero's left eye. It seems he recognizes someone. Blue stripes appear in front of us. The cubes are shown in closer detail. We see a settlement from a bird's eye view. An old man holds papers in his hands. This man says that the exam in the western lands seems to have come to an end. We see this character's face up close. It is reported that this is Kalyan Badian, a sword master and the director of Lumen Academy. A girl with a short haircut puts her hand on her forehead. She does not understand how this is possible. The exam has just begun in the other lands. She asks how many students Albizeron has accepted for training. The old man states that, given his methods, quite a lot, 40 people. We see squares and stars. The girl asks the director if this is enough, in his opinion. The old man laughs cheerfully. He states that he expected no more than a dozen students, so there is no need to be indignant here. The girl assumes that Celia or her brother Abad probably got the highest score. She asks who was higher. Kalyan Badian shuffles through the papers containing the relevant information. According to him, Albizeron reported that it was difficult for him to determine the winner. However, he nominated a candidate for the post of freshman class monitor. The girl looks at the old man in surprise. She asks if Professor Albizeron really recommended someone. She assumes it was either Celia Zerdinger or Abad Llewellyn. Kalyan says he has never heard that name before. The girl asks again in surprise. Albizeron, standing behind his lectern, looks at the young people below. They loudly shout out the names of Celia and Abad. Meanwhile, Leo is shown on the huge screen. The teacher silently looks at the hero. An announcement is heard that the professor recommends Leo Plove for the post of freshman class monitor, Knight's department. Kalyan rubs his gray beard thoughtfully. He says that such praise from Albizeron himself looks very unusual. I just wonder who this student is. The professor, meanwhile, gives the reason for his choice. He says that Leo has the talent to be a hero. We see the upper corner of the room, a black curtain hangs on the window. Someone says that such pain can only be cured with time and care. Water pours out of the pool. The hero lies in the water and enjoys life. Bubbles fly in front of his contented face. The guy thinks that he received a reward for completing the game The Oath of the Fairy King. There is usually no reward for completing a level in the hero's world. We see a ring with a yellow stone. Leo thinks that he nevertheless received a reward. Only he and no one else. We see the hero's back. He asks how so. Leo looks at something in surprise. A woman stands in front of him, clenching her fist. This is the young man's mother. She calls out to her son and asks if he knows why she was expelled from the Zerdinger house. Leo looks at the woman in surprise. We see two hands reaching out to each other. Rihanna says that she sacrificed the Zerdinger flame to save her colleague. The woman stands holding her elbow. She states that she has never regretted her decision. Leo, still sitting in the pool, looks closely at his mother. The woman says that it would be nice if the young man put his strength and talent to good use. Rihanna smiles and congratulates her son on entering Lumen Academy. A magnificent portal is visible on a hill overlooking the city. The arrival of Lumeria is announced. Someone's foot is placed on the green lawn. An announcement is made calling for people to check their belongings before exiting the gate. The hero looks at the magnificent city spread out before him. He says that this is the center of the continent, Lumeria. In front of us is a majestic building with many spires. Leo thinks that the Lumen Academy is in that direction. Someone asks the hero how he spent the past month. The guy shudders in surprise. He recognizes his uncle. The man shakes the boy's hand and congratulates him on passing the exam. Leo thanks him and asks what his uncle is doing here. We see a magnificent coat of arms with a phoenix bird in the middle. Zais reports that the entire past month there have been endless debates in the house. The man asks if the hero can guess what exactly the representatives of the clan were arguing about. Leo, looking at his uncle, assumes that they were deciding whether to pass on the breath of the phoenix to him or not. Zais puts his hand under the hem of his suit. He declares that the boy guessed. Rihanna, his mother, is more than just a member of the clan, and he is her son. It also helped that the elders were very surprised by the fact that the boy passed the incredibly difficult exam of the Western Lands. Zais hands his nephew an exquisite key. He states that it is a spatial key. The hero holds this miracle in his hand. Zais tells the boy to open it. Leo looks at the object in his hand in surprise. A red gem stands out on the end of it. A red object appears between the uncle and nephew. The boy, covering his right eye, looks at the book, the pages of which turn by themselves. We see a blank spread. The boy grabs his chin with his hand. Zais tells him to sprinkle the pages with a drop of his blood. A stain appears on the white page. The book, which is between the two relatives, emits a very bright glow. Strange symbols are visible on the previously blank pages. Zais states that now only Leo will be able to read this book. He states that learning the secret technique of Zerdinger will not be easy. Zais puts his hand on the boy's shoulder. He states that he is completely confident that he will master it in the shortest possible time. A man looks at a young man and congratulates him on successfully joining the Zerdinger house. We see a sign with a white shirt on it. The hero is standing on a city street in front of a tall building. The guy looks around and says that Celia suggested meeting somewhere around here. We see a stack of books. A girl with glasses falls to her knees. The hero sits in front of her. The girl gasps in surprise. She collects the books and apologizes to the hero, stating that she simply did not notice him on her way. Leo looks down. He seems to have noticed something on the ground. The young man's hand reaches for the card. The guy examines the photo. He sees that the girl who bumped into him is 46, and she has just entered Lumen Academy. The door opens. Someone asks the hero what took him so long. Leo looks at someone. Celia is holding many bags in her hands. She states that they need to buy uniforms, books, and everything else. The boy apologizes and says that Uncle's eyes detained him. The girl cannot hide her amazement. She asks if they really made a decision. And what was it? We see a hand with a fire burning in it. Now we see a red eye. Leo, who is standing in the middle of the raging flames, asks if he is using it correctly. Celia drops all her bags on the floor and says that this simply cannot be. The guy whose hand emits a glow smiles. He thinks that it took him 3 weeks just to get used to this technique. Celia looks at the boy in shock. She mentally calls him by name and asks who the hell he is. We see a huge ship. Someone shouts loudly that the ship is docking. Another observer is surprised by the size of this ship. Leo and Celia look at the ship. Someone appears behind them. A man in a green suit approaches the young people from behind. He says he is happy to welcome the newcomers and introduces himself as Professor Analandu, in charge of the first-year night class. The young man points his thumb behind him with a disgruntled expression and says that everyone needs to get on board. They are leaving for Lumen. We are informed that this is Analandu, an ice attribute knight and a professor at Lumen Academy. The ship sails along the sea. The professor is drinking wine, leaning on the railing. The hero looks at someone intently. Someone calls out to the young man and the girl standing next to him. The question follows if it is possible to get the attention of this couple for a moment. Celia angrily yells at the ignorant man who called her and the young man standing next to him a couple. He introduces himself as Car Thomas from the Kingdom of Moira. An information board states that this is 15-year-old Car Thomas, an alchemist. The young man states that he sells everything from potions to weapons. He hands over his business card and says that he is always available for any needs at the academy, and there is no need to be embarrassed about it. Leo thinks that he is a very interesting child. 3 students are standing in front of the laid tables. Leo says that he is pleased to meet them. He introduces himself as Leo Plo from the Kingdom of Dalad. Car Thomas asks if this means that the hero has passed the infamous exams of the West. If so, then that is truly impressive. Leo looks at his new acquaintance and asks if he is the only one who finds this situation strange. Car tries to clarify what the hero means. Leo says that this ship is so calm and peaceful that he can't stop having a bad feeling. The students calmly take food from the tables. Celia sighs and says that this is just a warm greeting for the new students who have just passed their exams. There is nothing surprising about this. Leo looks anxiously at Analandu. Car, who is about to put a cake in his mouth, says that there really is no need to torment the students even before the distribution. Something unpleasant begins to happen on the deck of the ship, and only the hero remains relatively calm. He states that there must be a reason after all. A huge tentacle rises from the water. Someone asks what the hell is going on. Something falls next to Car. A young man sits down on the deck. Someone calls the professor for help. He calmly holds a glass of wine in his hand. The man calmly takes a sip from it. He says that students of the Lumen Academy, candidates for heroes, have gathered here. Defiantly looking at the young people, the professor declares that if it becomes dangerous, they can only rely on themselves. A giant octopus rises above the deck of the ship. Someone steps on the food. Leo puts his sword forward and asks Celia to control herself. The girl, behind whom a giant tentacle rises from the water, shouts at the guy to worry about himself. We see the yellow eye of the octopus. Now we see the end of one of its tentacles. Leo tells the girl that the kraken's natural reaction to heat is to shoot water. Everyone should know about this. Celia, covering one eye, sits on the deck, water dripping off her. The monster grabs Car by the leg with a tentacle, who screams in fear. The guy and the girl run somewhere. Armed with cold weapons, they begin to attack the monster together. Car ends up on the deck again. It looks like they saved him. The red-haired guy looks at his saviors in amazement. He says that the reaction of Celia, a top student in the West, is understandable. But what's wrong with this Leo? A frozen octopus tentacle falls next to Car. The young man raises his hand and starts to protest violently. We see the girl the hero ran into on the street a little earlier. Leo remembers this meeting. Now the young man watches the girl fight, surrounding herself with sharp ice crystals. Chloe calmly tells the young man standing behind her that he can step aside if he is unable to stand up for himself. Car is incredibly angry. He turns to God and asks if the powers that be even care who gets hit. Another octopus tentacle falls onto the deck. In front of us are Chelsea and a bat. Someone is screaming loudly next to them. The brother and sister step away somewhere. The guy turns to Celia Zerdinger and declares that their competition is not over yet. Celia angrily screams that she is of exactly the same opinion. Leo looks at Chelsea in surprise. The professor pours wine into his glass. He states that there are a lot of monsters in the waters surrounding the academy, and the kraken is canon for the welcoming party. Analandu calmly looks at the terrible monster that is going crazy outside the ship. The teacher thinks that, as he expected, the captains stand out from the rest. We see the professor's right eye. He notices a smiling girl. It is reported that in front of us is Chen Zia from the Eastern Lands. The next 2 characters are very familiar to us. They are Celia Zerdinger and Abad Llewellyn from the West. The teacher also notes a girl with glasses. This is Chloe Mueller from the North. Another guy who stands out, according to the teacher, is the one we see with a tentacle in his hands. This is Walden Titan from the South. In front of us is a young man who emits yellow energy from his right hand. This is Duran Moira from the Central Region. Many students are bravely fighting the monster. The teacher thinks that this year's newcomers are truly outstanding. Analandu takes a sip from his glass. He looks at someone rather sullenly. The professor thinks that this unknown person impresses him the most. We understand that he means the hero, whom we see with a sword in his hand. The teacher thinks that the young man's swordsmanship is impeccable. He does not make a single unnecessary movement and moves as if he reads the mind of a kraken. Ainalandu smiles. He expects to see this guy in his class. A huge ship sails up to the pier. An exhausted car complains about using up all his potions. The professor jumps off the side of the ship right onto the embankment. He tells the students that they will have to cross this lake often, so they should get used to it. Ain suggests that everyone go to the entrance. We see a magnificent building. In front of us is something like a stadium. We are informed that we are at the Electra training ground of the Lumen Academy. Someone claims that this institution really doesn't accept normal people. They answer that at least these freaks are fun. Students are sitting in the stands of the stadium. An announcement sounds that the admissions ceremony is about to begin. Ain tells the students standing in front of him to line up by region. Those who scored the highest scores come forward. An announcement sounds that the principal is about to give a speech. Before us is Kalyan Badian, a sword master and the principal of Lumen Academy. He addresses the students. Calling them friends, he declares that this year, as always, the ranks of students are filled with new future heroes. The old man has only a few words for the youth. The characters we know listen attentively to the principal. He declares that if they dream of becoming heroes, they must give it their all. Two girls look at the old man attentively. He says that they must overcome their limits. Before us are two young men. Kalyan strikes with his left hand. According to him, those who are not capable of this do not belong here. There are wooden fragments lying under the principal's feet. The old man seems embarrassed by what he just did. He asks apologetically if he has crossed the line. The students shout in admiration. Kalyan looks at them a little guiltily. He loudly declares that he does not hear the students. We see two young men with tears streaming from their eyes. The old man thinks that the longer they teach here, the more the image of the great swordsman fades. A teacher in a suit comes up to the podium. He says that it is time for the first-year class president to speak. Celia and Abad look at someone in amazement. Two other girls we know look no less excited. One of the young men is angry. The second looks at him with a serious expression. The host of the event says the name Leo Plov. The hero is apparently surprised to hear his own name. The guy sees Ainalandu and Albai Ziron at a short distance from him. The host asks the young man to come up to the stage. We see Albai Ziron's face up close. The hero feels like he was the one who recommended him for this position. Leo hesitantly moves forward. He stands on the stage with a folder in his hands. The guy begins his speech by addressing the professors and other teachers. The students discuss the young man. One of the girls says that she has never heard of Leo Plov. The young man standing next to him thought that the class monitor would be someone whose name is already on everyone's lips. Leo says that they, the first-year students, now bear the honorary title of students of Lumen Academy. We see someone's eye. Its owner evaluates the hero's look and behavior. Leo slams the folder shut. He thanks for everything and says that the speaker was Leo Plov, the first-year student monitor. The host of the ceremony thanks the guy. He asks him to share his plans as the first-year student monitor. We once again see the young man standing at the podium. The hero smiles. He does not understand whether he is being deliberately forced to anger the other candidates for the position of monitor. The guy begins to talk about his plans. We see two young men standing behind the hero. One of them notices that the young man has a very good tongue. He is a model student. The second one replies that, in all likelihood, the ceremony will go smoothly. Leo stands with his hands in his pockets. Finally, he declares that if any of the students are aiming for his place, let them try to take it away. We see the emotions of 6 students, many of whom are already familiar to us. Leo looks defiantly at the other students. He declares that he is ready to compete with anyone. In front of us is a nice building. It is reported that this is the dormitory of the Lumen Academy. Someone inside declares that everyone worked well today. In front of us is a lamp, books, vials, and a pen. Someone says that from tomorrow and throughout the next week, introductory classes will be held. During this period, regardless of the students' preferences, they can attend any classes. This is necessary in order to choose 3 subjects as the main ones for future development. Then comes the advice to go to bed early today so as not to be late for the first classes. The students are standing in the hall of a huge building. In front of us is a sign for room number 302. The guy next to whom the hero is standing says that they will be staying in neighboring rooms. The young man opens the door to his room. He says that he is really looking forward to tomorrow and wishes the hero a good night. Leo says goodbye to the young man until tomorrow. The young man is lying on the bed next to the suitcase. His eyes are closed. The guy is thinking about what he really needs at Lumen Academy. The door opens. Leo looks up, where a magical formation is visible above a huge rock. We see a smile on the young man's black face. He is thinking about the fact that in this institution he will find the hero protocol with records about himself, that is, about his deeds in a past life. 2 students sit down at a table in the dining room. Car appears next to the hero. He offers the guy to eat together. Leo, who brings a piece of food to his mouth, agrees. Someone calls him, calling him the freshman class representative. Leo, who has already put his food in his mouth, is quite surprised. In front of him is Duran Moira, a top student of the Central Region. This young man, looking angrily at the hero, asks if he really meant what he said in his welcoming speech. Leo, chewing his food, declares that his words could indeed seem quite provocative, and now all sorts of strangers will start pestering him, asking for a fight. We see the young man's right eye. He asks if the hero really does not know him, the best representative of the Central Region. Leo and Car eat calmly, ignoring the students standing in front of them. He grinds his teeth in anger. Car looks at what is happening before his eyes in amazement. Duran smashes the table where the two guys were eating with a powerful kick. The hero jumps from his seat. We see how he picks up a bun with a fork, and then the rest of the hamburger. It looks like the hero manages to assemble this multi-component dish with quick movements. Car holds a tray on which the food falls. A perfectly assembled hamburger is visible in front of the hero. Calmly looking at his opponent, Leo declares that throwing such delicious food is unforgivable. Duran, gritting his teeth in anger, looks at the hero and says that he will bring him down to earth in a moment. The guy shouts that he will not allow some weakling to show off in front of him. Someone's hand falls on the shoulder of one of the young men. A man is standing next to the guys. It turns out that this is Ainalandiu. Smiling, he tells the students that in front of him is a guy from the Central Region and a newly minted class monitor. Leo cannot understand when the professor managed to appear here. The professor sternly looks at the bullies. He asks if they understand what awaits them for starting a fight in Lumen on the very first day. A smile appears on the hero's face. Duran looks less cheerful. In front of us are the stands of a sports facility. Ainalandiu, arms folded, stands under a huge clock. One of the students raises his hand and, asking the professor for forgiveness, says that it is time to begin the lesson. Celia, who is standing next to him, tries to understand where Leo has gone. We see someone's hand. Leo and Duran are standing in the open doors. Celia runs up to the hero and asks him what happened. Looking at the guy in surprise, she wonders if he was really fighting. Beads of sweat are running down the hero's hair and cheeks. We see the edge of the stadium roof. The teacher says that since everyone is here, it is time to begin the lesson. The professor, smiling, looks at his students. He says that he is glad to meet the newcomers. The man introduces himself as Ainalandiu, responsible for training the first-year Knights unit. Duran and Leo are standing next to each other. Car thinks that the two have already started a cold war with each other. We see someone's shoe. Its owner states that mana provides 3 ways to strengthen. Ainalandiu walks in front of the students and adds that they are spiritual, magical, and aura. The last one is the hardest to master. The teacher asks if anyone knows why. Celia says that mana loses its fluidity in the process of being converted into aura. Ainalandiu states that the girl answered correctly. We see a figure holding a bright sphere in his hand that emits energy. The professor states that if magical and spiritual energy are powered by mana in its natural form, then the aura that consumes mana must adapt to the body. We see a hand emitting white energy, and then its owner. The professor asks if someone can explain how exactly humans use the aura that accumulates in the body. Celia clenches her fist. She remembers that it happens simply by applying force. Leo states that humans use aura by burning their mana. Ainalandiu smiles and says that the boy answered correctly. He asks if the young man knows what is the most important thing when burning mana. Leo replies that it is endurance. Duran, who the hero recently fought, glares at his opponent. Ainalandiu praises Leoplov for his impressive knowledge. He asks if the boy has studied aura before. Leo says no. We see the lower part of the professor's face. He tries to understand why the guy understands the essence so well, although he has not taken specialized classes. Ainalandiu suggests putting the theory aside for now. We see his shoe. The professor suggests warming up a bit. The students, with their mouths open, look at him. There is something surprising, since Ainalandiu seems to be walking on air. He states that he uses an aura step, which is based on the simple concentration of aura in the legs. The professor again finds himself on the green grass of the stadium. He stares at the students and states that, among other things, the potential for its use is limitless. In front of us is a clock. One of the students jumps above the grass. We see students fighting each other. Celia, standing behind the hero, says that if he calls him sister, she will teach him everything. Leo sullenly says that he can easily do without it, since the principles of mastering aura are the same everywhere. Ainalandiu looks at something in surprise. Duran bites his right thumb with a worried expression. We see the professor's mouth. He claps his hands and asks for attention. Ainalandiu says that, as everyone remembers, a small incident occurred this morning. Chelsea asks in surprise what they are talking about. Car, smiling, whispers in the girl's ear if she is really interested. After all, it was no joke. The blonde asks him to tell her about those events. The professor calls Leo and Duran over. The boys obediently approach. Ainalandu stares at the top of the Central Region representative's head. He asks what made him so angry. Duran replies that he was not angry at all. The professor, smiling, asks the opponents to get ready. The professor stands in front of the two students. He solemnly announces that Duran Moyer from the Central Region and the freshman class president Leo Plove must hold a one-on-one running competition for the position of president. Ainalandu opens his mouth wide and says that aura can be used without restrictions in this competition. Anxiety appears on the hero's face. Carr, who is holding a small board, shouts loudly that he is accepting bets. The guy announces that the first participant in the competition is Duran Moira, a genius of the Moira house from the Hero League, who is a master of the lightning attribute aura. We see the young man being introduced. Now we see the hero preparing to run. Carr announces him as a dark horse from the hinterland, a mysterious man who beat everyone in the entrance exams and became the first-year class monitor. The students, whose faces we do not see, are animatedly discussing the upcoming competition. One of them says that since the hero was chosen as the monitor, he definitely knows how to do something. The second one says that the hero recently mentioned in a conversation with Celia Zerdinger that he does not know how to use aura. The third one says that in this case, he does not understand how he is going to win. The top student of the Central Region is not just the title, but the dubious class monitor has not yet shown himself. The professor, smiling, declares that the winner will be the one who crosses the finish line first. And whoever wins, the result is not up for discussion. This is the essence of the rivalry. The professor calls on the participants of the competition to get ready. We see Celia's profile. The girl thinks that, frankly speaking, Leo does not have a single chance. The hero and Duran are ready to start on the stadium's running track. The girl thinks that this guy always exceeds expectations. The professor gives the signal to start the race. The guys start running. Duran turns to the hero, calls him a newbie and shouts that he will be the first. The young people rush along the stadium's running track. We see this sports facility from a bird's eye view. The students present comment on what is happening. Someone says that Duran is doing great, he is just great. But the freshman class president doesn't live up to expectations. We see a leg with red energy flowing around it. In front of us are two young men. One of them says that the hero is very bad. The other says that he was probably appointed class president by mistake. It's hard to believe that this happened. Chelsea puts her hands to her mouth and shouts loudly at the hero that he is the best. Duran runs forward, spreading streams of yellow energy around himself. Carr, his eyes bulging, looks at the treadmill. He thinks that Duran has already run halfway. We see that Leo is indeed lagging far behind. In front of us are legs. The young man speeds up. Celia looks at her friend in amazement and tries to understand what this idiot is up to. We see someone's shoe again. Leo makes a series of jumps. Streams of red energy rise from under his feet. The ground cracks under the hero. He jumps high into the air. Duran looks in amazement at what is approaching him from behind. Leo is no longer running, but flying forward. Overtaking his opponent, he shouts that he is too slow and will definitely lose. Duran cannot believe his eyes. The hero has to put in maximum effort to slow down. Duran looks ahead in surprise. The hero turns to him, smiling. We see cracked ground. In front of us are two students. One asks his friend if he saw what happened. He replies that this is not a joke at all. Duran was the fastest among the freshmen. How did this blonde manage to overtake him? The guys look closely at the participants of the race that just took place. One of them says that Leo definitely did not study the aura step. Celia, her mouth wide open, looks at her friend. She understands that he used not the aura step, but the phoenix step. In front of us are Carr and Chelsea. The young man shouts loudly that Leo has won. The girl greets the guy with admiration. Ainalandu, arms folded on his chest, looks at the young men who have finished the race. He analyzes the movements of the hero's opponent. Then he remembers how Leo acted. Alandu realizes that Duran used his specialty, the lightning aura, to speed up. He expected it, but the speed that the hero managed to develop is simply amazing. Even though Leo was slower at first, he has much better control of his attribute. He managed to gather and focus the maximum amount of fire aura on his feet, which formed a giant step of aura. This is simply an amazing use of capabilities. The hero, standing in front of his opponent, admits that it was an excellent competition. If the race was over a long distance, the result could have been different. Duran turns away in irritation and leaves, asking the young man to leave him alone. Alandiu, smiling, looks at his students. He thinks that in this generation, it seems like a true hero has appeared. Chelsea clenches her fists. She screams that it was amazing. The girl declares that she wants to do the same and asks the hero to train her. Carr asks Celia irritably why Chelsea is so obsessed with the hero, since Carr himself is no worse. Celia asks ironically if the guy really thinks so. Carr, surrounded by his comrades, suggests that since classes are over, they all go to a cafe. The guy promises to treat everyone. Leo apologizes and suggests that the students go without him. They ask him why he refuses. Leo simply leaves. His comrades ask where he is going. The young man replies that he has summoning classes. Kar and Celia look at the hero in amazement. The guy asks why a knight needs summoning classes. The girl says that she is also very interested in this. Leo looks thoughtful. He still does not understand something. Why did the fairy king give him an oath as a reward? We see the guy again, standing in front of the ghostly figure in a hood. Usually, the reward in the hero's world is limited by the power of his creator. The reward that Leo received seems much more useful for the summoner. But Professor Albizeron is a regular mage, not connected to the summoning. Here is the character the boy is thinking about. Leo is standing under a tree. He thinks that he should have received some kind of magical prize. Besides, to make a contract with a fairy, he needs to go to the land of fairies. So for now, this prize is completely useless. Someone asks Leo if he came to the summoning class. The boy turns around. He realizes that the best student in the East is in front of him. The girl he sees greets the hero happily and says she is glad to meet him. We are reminded that this is Chen Zia, who is 17 years old. The young man, with his hands in his pockets, says that he is also very glad to meet him. The girl says that the guy can just call her Chen. We see green grass. The girl says that she was sure that the guy would choose the knight unit. She could not imagine that he was interested in conscription. Leo looks at the girl and says that he is more interested in spiritualism. Chen Zia says that then they will see each other often. Leo asks to say what spirit the girl made a contract with. She shows him this character. In turn, she asks the guy to show her spirit. The guy and the girl communicate, standing opposite each other. Leo says that he has not yet made a magic contract. Chen Zia says that if the guy needs help, he can safely contact her. She will always help with useful advice. The hero says that he is counting on the girl and then asks how old she is. Chen Zia smiles and puts her hand to her chest. She states that she is 17. Then she says that the young man, as far as she knows, is only 15. She accidentally heard this in a conversation with Celia. Leo imagines two girls. It seems to him that Chen Zia looks even younger than Chelsea. The girl looks suspiciously at the thoughtful guy. She looks straight into his eyes and asks what he is thinking about. Leo says that he is thinking about nothing. A smile appears on Chen Zia's face again. She states that in any case, she was very impressed by today's fight with Durin. Leo asks if she was present in the stands. The girl replies a little thoughtfully that she was there. We see her legs. Resolutely looking at the guy, Chen Zia expresses the hope that one day he will accept her challenge. Leo smiles. He says that he will definitely do it. The girl smiles happily. We see green branches. Before us is a magnificent landscape, illuminated by the bright sun. It is reported that an introductory lesson on the draft is taking place here. In front of us is a group of students. We see a blonde girl, and now a rather gloomy young man. Also here is the hero, and Chen Zia. The hero thoughtfully asks if these are all the students who will be at this lesson. Chen Zia, smiling, rubs her chin. She says that the draft is not very popular, especially an introductory lesson. Leo, who is standing in the middle of a green lawn, says that he understands everything. But holding lessons right like this, in the open air, is somehow unusual. A creature with wings like a pterodactyl appears in the air above the students' heads. The students look at the landed monster. One of them recognizes the black wyvern. Someone else asks where it came from. The monster moves its head closer to the young man sitting on the ground. He tearfully asks the monster to leave him alone. We see the girl. She calls the guy an idiot and says that the wyvern was actually being polite. A long-haired blonde jumps off the monster's neck. She says that she is glad to meet the first years and introduces herself as Yura Marin. The beauty, smiling, puts her hand on the top of her head. She states that she is a summoning teacher and will be teaching students for the next year. We see a plaque confirming the name of this character and stating that she is a summoning teacher at Lumen Academy. Two guys look at the girl with loving eyes. One of them thinks that he would not mind becoming a summoning teacher too. The hero remembers his friend from his previous life. Leo thinks that this woman is not at all like Luna and Lysanas, but she is inspiring in a good way. If Duino were here, he would just go crazy. The winged monster sits leaning against a tree. His mistress addresses the recruits and states that if they are all here, it means they have a talent for summoning. The young men readily confirm that this is indeed the case. We see a long-haired girl from behind. She praises the students for their cheerful responses. After that, she suggests that they move on to practice immediately. The girl calls out to a certain Carlo. We see a bird's leg. In front of us is a young man who is hugging his pet. It is reported that this is Carlo, the second teacher for the first-year recruits. The students of the academy are standing next to the griffins. Carlo says that they will learn to fly riding on these creatures. To begin with, they need to work in pairs. One of the students excitedly tells the professor that this is only their first contact with the griffins. The girl looks at him angrily with her yellow eyes. She asks if the young man has any complaints about the methods of conducting lessons. The beauty, whose hair is flying, loudly shouts that the guy can get out if he is not confident in his abilities. In front of us is a black wing of a monster. The wyvern flies into the air. The students look up in shock. Carlo tries to calm the young people down. Raising his hand, he says that it would be a good idea to follow the teacher's instructions together. We see two students who seem to have already made friends with the griffin. One of them says that the creature is more polite than it seems from the outside. The other pair is doing much worse. The griffin holds one of the guys by the collar. Chen comes up to the hero sitting on the griffin from behind and asks him if he will allow her to take control of the pet. The guy easily agrees. We see sea waves. Now in front of us is the sun shining in the sky. The feathered creatures fly over the sea with the students on their backs. We see a huge wing of one of the griffins and hear the young people's remarks. One of them says that he would never have thought that they would immediately be put on griffins. This is just a wonderful academy. Someone asks a friend to let him drive too. Leo is sitting behind Chen. The girl says that, to be honest, she was a little worried, but the griffin turned out to be a real cutie. The guy says that vigilance still doesn't hurt. Griffins are not that easy to control, especially for a newbie. The girl strokes the creature's neck. She asks if this kind griffin is really capable of something nasty. Leo tries to explain the reason, but doesn't have time. We see a whistle at the professor's mouth. Her wyvern flies in front of the griffins. In front of us is a yellow eye, and now a sharp purple claw. The griffin opens its mouth wide. Someone shouts that the creature has stopped obeying. The professor hears cries for help addressed to her. Leo finishes her explanation, stating that the professor has really been controlling the griffins all this time. We see a feather falling down. Marin, sitting on her wyvern, smiles happily. She states that if someone can't handle a griffin, then they are too young to become students at Lumen Academy. She demands that the students try to control their pets themselves. The creature that Chen and Leo are riding screams loudly. The young man squeezes the girl's fists tightly. He says that griffins are proud creatures. Trying to subdue them by force only makes them angrier. The girl asks what the boy is doing. She feels like he is hitting on her. The hero takes the girl's hand a little differently. He whispers in her ear that she can try to do it like this. The griffin flies forward. The young men riding on its back seem to be smiling. Marin sits on her wyvern. She looks at the hero and his companion and thinks that this is very good. The girl turns to the assistant who is flying directly below her. She asks if the first-year class president applied for the night division. Carlo looks through some papers and replies that this is apparently how it happened. We see a young man's personal file. Marin asks if this guy had a personal griffin at home. Carlo replies that he doesn't. He's not from a noble house that could own griffins. The girl smiles and rubs her chin. She asks what it could be then. An innate gift? She states that they must have gotten their hands on an uncut diamond. Leo looks very pleased. In front of us is the seashore. It is reported that this is a practice ground for the summoning unit, Summoning Island. One of the students is feeling sick, but the hero, whom we see behind him, remains calm. He looks up and evaluates the size of some object. We see a yellow fruit with a feather on top. The hero seems to be confused by the size of the feather. Chen gets off the griffin and asks the young man what he is doing there. The guy replies that it is nothing special. One of the teachers shouts loudly for the students to stop messing around and gather. Leo hands the fruit he was holding to the griffin. The professor and his assistant stand in front of the students. The girl announces that there will now be a practical test. Someone asks in bewilderment why the test must be held on the very first day of training. The young man says discontentedly that this is just an introductory lesson. Why put them through such a test right away? Marin, whose face we see, declares that this group's path is harder than that of other units. Maybe someone present did not know this. We see two hands generating streams of yellow energy. For a summoner, simple control over mana is not enough. A tiny fairy appears above the hands. Now we see a girl kissing the beak of a griffin. In order to make a contract with a spirit, you need a predisposition, and in order to command it, you need the gift of taming. This is why the number of summoner heroes is always smaller than in the other two classes. We see students walking somewhere in disappointment. In front of us is a girl with her eyes closed who enthusiastically generates energy. However, summoners who have achieved unity with a pet are capable of much greater feats compared to other heroes. Marin asks if the students who came here do not want to become exactly such heroes. The young people enthusiastically shout that this is exactly what they want. In front of us is someone's shoe. A blonde girl asks what the essence of the test is. It is reported that in front of us is Eliza Hergen, a representative of the famous Hergen family of summoners from the north. Marin, looking sternly at the girl, states that this island is called Summon Island. We see the island, the sea in front of it, and the sky above it. The professor states that the name of the island speaks for itself. There are plenty of these creatures here. Summon is the main weapon of the summoner, so the test will test the student's taming abilities. The girl, smiling, raises her left hand. She states that the conditions of the test are quite simple. You need to tame the local summon and bring it. After taming and concluding a contract, it will become the property of the student. The students shout joyfully. They are very happy that they got to study at such a wonderful academy. Someone asks loudly, mentioning a god, is it really the head of the first-year students? Leo looks around in surprise. Eliza Hergen is in front of him and she is smiling. The girl states that rumors about the hero's victory over Durin have already spread. She asks if the guy will really go to classes after being summoned. Chen and a young man unknown to us look at the students chatting with displeasure. Leo walks away, declaring that the best must succeed in everything. Eliza looks after him with displeasure. Ira Marin smiles. She thinks that, in all likelihood, these guys will become key figures among the first-year students. Students wander around the island. One of them has already managed to make friends with a deer. Two students look after the hero. One of them asks if this is the head of the first-year students and if he has gone too far into the forest. The second replies that the guy should go wherever he wants. If he fails the test, he will go back to his night unit. In vain does he think that the call is very simple. Some sounds are heard near Leo. The hero picks up a feather. Streams of red and yellow energy swirl around the guy. The feather dissolves in the air. A bright source of light is visible behind the young man's head. The guy says that he expected to see something like this. In front of us is an island illuminated by the bright sun. An egg is being fried in a frying pan. We see a tent. Someone expresses hope that Leo will cope there. Eggs and bacon are placed on the table. The man holding the plate declares that this is only the boy's first day at the academy. He hands the mug with a hot drink to the hero's mother and asks why he is so worried. We see a bright flame. The hero covers his face with his hands so as not to burn himself. Rihanna asks what could possibly happen. Meanwhile, her son feels a furious heat. He understands that in front of him is one of the three greatest summons, Phoenix. Leo, covering his forehead with his hand, looks at the flame. Someone calls him Zerdinger's child and says that the boy smells of Riene's flame. The young man asks in surprise how the interlocutor knows his mother. He makes a simple conclusion that, therefore, he was not mistaken. The flame takes on the outline of a firebird. Phoenix states that if Rihanna had a child, it would be about the hero's age. The bird confirms that it does know Rihanna and that she owes her a great debt. We see a cute smiling bird. It is revealed that this is Farina, a phoenix, one of the three mythic tier summons. The bird looks at the boy and introduces itself by name. Phoenix states that it is Riene's child. Leo greets the bird. Looking at it, he states that his name is Leo Plove. The boy asks to know how the bird is related to his mother and what debt is being discussed. Farina states that Riena saved the life of the bird summoner, whose name was Ellen Lunda. Leo looks at the phoenix in amazement. He realizes that it is about the hero Ellen Lunda. We see the back of the warrior kneeling on one knee. Farina states that Ellen Lunda was clearing a dungeon in Saren. She lost all her companions and her own life was in danger. We see someone's hair. The bird says that at that moment the hero's mother appeared and saved Ellen. In front of us is Riena with a sword in her hand. Phoenix says that in this case the woman lost her fiery aura. If not for that incident, she could have become a full-fledged hero. Leo looks down sadly and thinks about his mother. He says that she never regretted what she did. The bird smiles and says that she was such a knight. Leo looks up at the much taller interlocutor and asks Farina how she ended up in Lumen. The bird replies that she cannot say. In response, she asks the young man to explain something. He is a knight, right? Then what is he doing on this island? Leo says that he is attending summoning classes. Farina asks again, perplexed. We see the yellow eye of the phoenix. Streams of white energy surround the hero. Farina states that this is very interesting and that it seems like fate. Farina raises her wings and states that she will finally be able to repay the hero's mother. The bird asks the boy to reach out and receive something. A fire burns above the young man's palm. Farina states that this is her child. Leo looks at the egg, slightly surprised. Farina states that one day the boy will become a great summoner and then he will perhaps make a contract with the creature inside. We see the egg held by the hero up close. Farina regrets that this is all she can give for now. The hero, looking at the bird, asks if it is possible to make a contract now. Farina asks again, surprised. We see the bird's eyes. She states that it is too early. The boy may lose his life. We see the young man holding the egg in the bird's wing. Farina states that it is too late. In front of us is the young man's right eye. The hero thoughtfully holds the golden egg. Farina states that his determination to challenge the impossible makes him like Riene. The bird wishes him luck. Now we see the young man's left eye. There is a flame nearby. The hero reaches out to the source of the flame. The fire suddenly intensifies. Leo screams. He thinks that this heat is making it difficult to breathe. This is what the flame of the phoenix is. The hero realizes that only because they burn do these creatures emit such a powerful flame. We see a hand engulfed in flames. Leo understands that phoenixes face this pain every day. We see the hero's legs. He mentally addresses the creatures who live thanks to the regeneration of their eternally burning flesh. The boy understands their pain and shares it. Leo is surrounded by streams of hot flame. In his hand we see the golden egg again. It cracks. We see the hero's right eye. Leo looks at the egg hanging in the air before him. Someone asks if the guy really did it. A smile appears on the young man's face. It seems he had no doubt about it. Farina smiles happily and says that Leo Plove is a true genius. The bird declares that he will have no equal in this world. The guy looks at the cracked egg hanging above his head. Fiery threads are visible in the air. Farina congratulates the guy on successfully concluding the contract. Leo holds a cute chick in his hands. Farina declares that this cute creature is called Fiora. The corresponding plate informs that before us is a phoenix Fiora, one of 3 summons of the mythical level. Farina, having taken the form of a girl, declares that she entrusts her child to the hero. Leo cannot believe that this is really a phoenix because the bird looks like some kind of chicken. Fiora, smiling, makes very cute sounds. The hero thinks that this is probably some kind of chicken. Under the huge black wing are Yura Marin and 2 students. The teacher is happy that someone was able to subdue a very cute wombat. The girl asks her assistant Carlo how much time is left until the end of the test. He answers that it is only 5 minutes. The guy says that there are only 4 students left. Yura seems to notice something. We see a black bear quickly approaching. Chenzia is sitting on its back. Smiling, the girl asks the professor if the time is up yet. Yura is surprised to note that the student managed to tame a baby water bear. This is truly impressive. Chenzia looks up in shock. The blonde man is holding some kind of bird by the paw. One of the observers reports that it is a shadow raven. Even a representative of a famous family cannot always tame such a summon. The young man seriously states that he has not yet signed a contract. They tell him that he has already shown himself from his best side. Eliza Hergen sits on top of a white snake. She hears the students' admiring exclamations. The girl, folding her arms across her chest, declares that she decided not to delay and made a contract with this creature. There have never been any in their family before. Someone states that she got a gorgon snake and that it is simply magnificent. Carlo loudly tells the professor that time is up and the last student is just arriving. Leo comes out of the forest. Everyone looks at him. Fiora happily sits on the young man's head. 2 young men mockingly point at the guy. One of them suggests that he tamed a chicken. The second says that most likely the guy realized his lack of talent in the art of summoning. Yura Marin, however, looks shocked. She realizes that a baby phoenix is sitting on the young man's head. The sun is setting behind the magnificent buildings. The hero tightens his tie. He knocks on the door. He is allowed to enter. Yura is standing behind the magnificent teacher's desk. The girl holds a piece of paper in her hand. Leo says that he was told that the teacher was looking for him. The girl invites the young man to come in and sit down. She admits that today was the first time she saw a phoenix chick. The hero is standing next to a red chair by the window. Yura says that, frankly, she didn't think that these creatures inhabited Summoning Island. Leo sits down in the chair. Yura approaches the young man. She says that she can't believe that a newbie immediately made a contract with a phoenix. This is an unprecedented case in the history of the academy. Leo looks at the girl in bewilderment. She stares straight into his eyes and says that she seems to know who Leo Plove really is. A drop of sweat runs down the young man's cheek. Yura Marin hugs the guy tightly and almost throws him off the chair. She shouts that he is a genius of summoning. An indisputable genius. We see the wheels of the chair. The girl says that the young man should be rewarded for such an achievement, but it is better to keep the fact that he made a contract with a phoenix a secret for now. If it is revealed, there will be a stir. Leo looks up. The professor puts her hand on his shoulder. She says that once the introductory classes are over, the boy should choose a summoning class as his main focus. The girl smiles happily. She declares that Leo was born to become the greatest summoning hero who will be remembered for centuries. We see the magnificent building of Lumen Academy. A blonde girl walks down the corridor, yawning. Someone tells her to be careful, otherwise she might tear her mouth. Chloe looks at her in surprise. 2 young men approach her. One of them says that the girl looks tired. She replies that she was reading a magic book until late. Leo asks if this is Chloe Mueller. The guy hands over a card with a photo of the girl. We are reminded that he picked her up from the sidewalk after colliding with a blonde. Chloe gasps in amazement. She says that it was him, then. The girl thanks the freshman president. The door opens. Someone turns to the hero and asks him not to say that he is also going to the magic class. Leo says that while the introductory period is ongoing, he should try everything possible. We see the audience. The hero pushes back his chair. He says that he signed up here because he is interested in magic. Car puts his hand to his cheek and says that the ice girl is going to be the first in the magic division. He clarifies that he means Chloe. We see the girl in question. Car rises from his seat and says that he feels like he was hit by a cold. Laughing with some kind of abnormal laugh, the guy says that he will go further. An ice wall grows in front of him. A hand lies on the desk in front of the hero. Someone tells Car to go to the front desks. A blonde drags a desperately screaming young man by the scruff of the neck. She says that she sees his interest in magic and offers to help. Chelsea calls the hero. He looks up in surprise. The blondes we already know wave their hands at the guy in a friendly manner. Leo looks around in amazement. The door to the classroom opens. Someone says that he is glad to welcome everyone to the magic lesson. We see someone's legs. Two girls joyfully clench their fists. The one who entered declares that he will be the one teaching students magic for the next year. In front of us is a young man. He introduces himself as Len Hors. The information board confirms his name and says that he is a magic professor at Lumen Academy. The teacher's hand is lying on a stack of forms. He announces that before the start of today's classes there will be a short written test. Len Hors snaps his fingers. Yellow streams swirl around the students. The exam papers themselves fall in front of the students. Leo examines the paper, which shows magical formations. Someone asks in confusion why they have to give a test on the very first day. Len Hors looks sternly at the audience. He declares that this is his decision, and students who do not meet his standards will not be able to study with him. Someone asks again in surprise. The young man points to an hourglass. He declares that the students of Lumen Academy must crack tasks like nuts. Once the students have finished the test, they must hand the papers to his assistant, whose name is Anna. The girl he mentioned raises her hand. She shouts for the work to be handed to her. The traditional plaque announces that this is Anna, the assistant of the first-year professor. Leo, smiling, examines the task. He analyzes the current magical trends and is surprised by the intricacy of modern formulas. Time flies. One of the students examines the exam paper. Someone writes the answers with a pen. In front of us is an hourglass. Two students are talking. One of them says that the test was easier than he thought. The second one asks how the guy answered the last question. He says that he did not do this task. Leo is holding a sheet of paper. He was able to complete only one task. The guy puts the exam sheet in front of Anna and she enthusiastically shouts that he is doing well. The hero, meanwhile, thinks that he should have become more familiar with modern magical theory before coming here. Leo leaves the classroom. He says that it looks like he will have to study magic on his own. We see the hourglass again. Leo says that magic has evolved greatly over the last 100 years. It used to require perfect understanding, but now it is used calmly with only knowledge of the principles of activation. The professor once again makes a movement with his fingers and the exam sheets themselves are stacked. We see two girls sitting at a desk. The hero finishes his thought and says that, however, this evolution has significantly lowered the level of today's magicians. Len Hors raises his hand. A white flash occurs above her. A magical formation appears around her. The students are amazed. The professor states that they are seeing his essence of magic. He created it from beginning to end. White streams of energy spread from the teacher's left hand. He states that he would like the students to become mages who can create in this way. Len Hors clenches his fist. He states that this is why he gave this test. We see an exam sheet. The professor states that there were 49 questions on the test worth 1 point each based on simple memorization. Len Hors looks at the students with a stern gaze. He states that they were only asked one question about the true essence of magic and it was worth 51 points. The professor expresses his hope that each of the students will grow here into a mage who can answer it. Chelsea, looking at the piece of paper, states that she is no longer surprised that she could not answer it. A pen and an exam sheet are on the desk. The girl thinks that Leo has probably really given up. This is bad. She would like to go to class with him. The professor and his assistant are talking to each other. The girl says that there is one student who answered the 50th question. Len Hors looks shocked. We see a bright halo of white light around him. The man loudly asks where the student who got the highest score in history is. The students silently look at him from behind their desks. Len Hors beams and looks around the audience. He loudly asks the one who did it to stand up. Anna timidly says that this is far from the maximum score. The professor decisively pushes the girl aside. He says that there is nothing wrong with it. A few missed assignments are nothing compared to the answer to the last question. The man says that this is neither good nor bad and demands that the mysterious student make himself known. Anna whispers that this is not the case. Only the last question was answered correctly. We see the left side of the professor's face. He asks for the student's name. In front of us is a card with a photo of the hero. Anna says it's Leo Plouf. Chloe and Car look at each other in surprise, not understanding where the hero has gone. The professor loudly demands that student Leo Plouf get up from his seat. Chelsea timidly raises her hand. She says that student Leo left after passing the test. Lanhors asks again, puzzled. We see the exam sheet. Celia laughs loudly, holding her head. She asks if the hero really left just because he could answer only one question. She says that the guy got a chicken during the recruitment class and gave only one correct answer on the magic test. He is clearly heading in the wrong direction. We see a glass with an exquisite dessert. Leo and Celia are sitting across from each other at the table. The girl suggests that the guy just focus on fencing since he is aiming for the knightly division. The young man offers to train together. Celia remembers how it looked last time and refuses. A man approaches the table. He asks the hero if he really prefers the knightly division, so he decided to just laugh at magic. We see the left eye of the man who approached. He asks the guy why he left right after passing the test. Did it really seem so simple to him that the guy did not even bother to answer? Leo leaves the table and stands in front of the teacher. He tells the professor that it was a misunderstanding. He just thought he failed the test. The teacher asks again, puzzled. Lanhors looks at the hero. The young man says that all the questions except the last one were too difficult, so he only answered it. The man asks again. Leo says that he studied magic on his own, reading outdated literature, so the advanced questions baffled him. We see the legs of the interlocutors. Lanhors thinks that he really is an outstanding character. He grabs the young man under the arms and lifts him into the air. Leo looks at the teacher in amazement. He looks at the guy, his eyes sparkling with joy, and invites him to go with him. Lanhors, glowing with happiness, grabs the hero by the collar and drags him somewhere. Celia looks after the running teacher in amazement. She asks if this is really the professor of magical theory at Lumen Academy. He is behaving very eccentrically. Anna runs up to the girl. She anxiously asks if the student has seen Professor Lanhors. Has he done anything wrong here? The girl replies that the teacher was just here, but then grabbed Leo and dragged him away. Celia is sitting at the table, getting ready to eat her dessert. Anna runs away. She thinks that she has some crazy boss who is up to something again. We see some kind of device in front of the magic formation. Now we see chalk in the notes it left. Lanhors points his hand at the board and asks the hero to solve it. Leo goes to the board and writes something. The professor thinks that if this student did not answer the last question by pure luck, then he must have his own idea of the magic system in his head. Lanhors, smiling, looks at the young man. He mentally asks the guy to show his true level. Leo turns to the teacher and declares that he has solved everything. Beads of sweat run down the professor's face. He asks if the student really solved all these problems in his head. In front of us is a chalkboard. Leo confirms that this is exactly what he did. We see the left side of the professor's face. He says that he has finally found something. In front of us is the luxurious interior of the academy. Albizeron is walking down the corridor, his hands in his pockets. Someone is running towards him. It is Lanhors, who is happily clenching his fist. Albizeron looks questioningly at his colleague. The latter grabs his leg and, sobbing hysterically, thanks him for everything. Albizeron looks up, where Lanhors is hanging upside down. He declares that this is not the first time he has witnessed the antics of the magic professor, but today he has gone especially wild. The teacher hanging from the ceiling is beaming with happiness. He exalts that Leo Plov is a genius magician. This is the same student that Albizeron recommended, the one who is the head of the first-year students. He is a real genius. Albizeron looks at Lanhors in bewilderment. He doesn't understand why he's talking about magic. The guy is supposedly a knight. Now the magic professor is crying bitterly. He shouts that the boy must become a mage at any cost. He can't let this young man's talent wither while he waves a metal rod. Anna runs up. The professor falls from the ceiling right into her arms. Lanhors shouts that handing him over to the knights would be an irreparable insult to magic itself. Albizeron tells the girl to take the professor. He, beaming with happiness, thanks the girl. Anna, smiling falsely, tells her professor that they'd better get back to class now. The girl thinks to herself that she'll kill this idiot someday. Leo appears behind Albizeron. The young man turns around, smiling. The hero looks at him questioningly. Albizeron, without saying a word, walks away. The hero thinks that these magicians are, as always, a little out of this world. A week later, after the trial lessons are over, Leo is lying on the roof with a book in his hands. We see the title on the cover, Kyle, Hero of the Origin, a Swindler. The hero sits down on the edge of the roof. We see many legs. Kalyan Badian is sitting at his desk. Several teachers rush into his office. One of them shouts loudly that this is simply unbelievable. He hands the head of the department an application form. We see that Leo Plov has chosen 3 divisions at once: Knight, Magic, and Summoning. The reason given is that he wants to be in time for everything. Lanhors and Uramarin seem ready to fight. The girl shouts that Leo will be studying with her. Aina Landu points at the paper and says that the guy should study in the Knight department. Someone declares that this is simply impossible. This is an unprecedented case in the Hero Academy. The student was supposed to choose only one division. Kalyan smiles and strokes his beard. He laughs and says it reminds him of a certain fictional hero. The professors look at the principal in amazement and ask in unison. Kalyan rises slightly from his chair. He says he is referring to the 5th grade hero, who is also known as the hero of origin. The old man looks out the window and says his name was Kyle. He was the only master of all 3 types. We see sunlit greenery. Celia and Chelsea are running along the track of the stadium. Carr, rubbing the back of his head, asks if the girls train on weekends too. Leo, putting his hands behind his head, says that Chelsea asked him to train her. Carr asks why they are running without weapons. The hero replies that there is something more important than weapons. An exhausted Celia says with disgust that it is endurance. Chelsea, who is drenched in sweat, explains to the red-haired guy that endurance is the most important aspect for a battle mage, so they are running here. Finally, the girl asks the young man to just leave her alone. The students are resting under a tree. Chelsea happily declares that she enjoys running on a day off. She really missed it, and she would not mind running with the hero now. He asks ironically. Celia spits out the water she just took in her mouth. Chelsea looks at the girl with hostility and asks what is wrong with her. Leo, who is sitting under the tree, says that he was planning to run with Celia anyway, and she should do it properly. The girl angrily screams that she will not run with him. Carr looks at the young people in surprise and asks what is going on between them. Why are they so close? At first, he even thought that they were dating. The brunette looks angrily at the guy and asks if he has gone crazy. Leo is her cousin, her aunt's son. Carr and Chelsea look at the hero in amazement. The girl asks if he is also a Zerdinger. Celia replies that he is not really due to some family circumstances. However, it makes no difference. Leo looks at Celia and offers to do it. Chelsea, throwing up her hands, greets the guy enthusiastically. Carr, smiling, says that he will go for a walk around the city. Celia, whom the hero drags somewhere by the collar, begs the red-haired guy to take her with him. Carr, putting his hands on his belt, looks at the girl and asks where all the normal nobles in his circle have gone. Sorting day. In front of us are 3 students. The hero enters a room with a sign above the door 1-5. Carr raises his hand and calls his comrade to him. The hero approaches the guy and asks if he knew that he would end up in class 5. Carr replies that he knows everything in the world. Leo says that Chelsea is here too. An exhausted girl lies on the table and greets the hero with a weak voice. 2 young men look at her in surprise. Carr asks what the hero did with her over the weekend. He replies that he was just brushing up on the basics. The girl says in a weak voice that she will never agree to this again. Someone asks if this is really a suffering class. Behind Leo we see 2 guys. One of them asks the other how many students, in his opinion, will survive the first semester. He pities the freshmen and ironically sympathizes with them. Someone asks the guys who they are sympathizing with. After all, it is both of them who are in trouble now. Someone appears behind the guys. They look around in amazement. We see a man with stubble who asks the guys if they agree with him. An unshaven man orders them to make a bridge. It is reported that this is Herod Edmund, the homeroom teacher of class 1-5 of Lumen Academy. Nickname, Tear Squeezer. 2 boys put their hands on the floor and stick their butts in the air. The teacher sits on them. He says he is glad to meet the good-for-nothing scum. Herod says that this is a class of losers, the ones with the lowest scores among the new students. The teacher's eyes are hidden by his long hair. He says that the students have probably heard of him by now. They call him Tear Squeezer and stuff like that. The man asks if anyone knows why he was appointed as the homeroom teacher of the students gathered here. One of the boys, his mouth open, looks to his left. Carr raises his hand. Smiling, he suggests that it is to improve his grades. Herod, whose back of his head we can see, calls the student by name and says that he is a typical representative of the losers. The teacher asks if no one in this class of scum understands what a student's duty is at Lumen Academy. Chelsea raises her hand. She suggests that they should conquer the world of heroes through practical missions. Herod says that it is so, but here he sees only the faces of losers who will die as soon as they cross the threshold of the academy. The shocked students, with their mouths open, look at this teacher. He says that it would be better to simply expel those pathetic nobodies who drag their comrades down than to let them die a little later. Herod sits on the students, crossing his legs. He says that this is the reason why he took over class 5. He also advises to remember the root of his nickname. Leo is sitting at one of the desks. Herod looks at him. The hero responds with a serious look. The teacher says that this guy may survive. The professor orders everyone to change into training uniforms and go to the training ground. The students sitting at their desks silently listen to the strange teacher. In front of us is a stadium. Herod declares that it is time for a combat test. We see students standing on a green lawn. In front of us is an umbrella, and now a folding chair. Herod settles in it, taking a bag of juice in his hand. The professor announces that a lesson is beginning, the purpose of which is to eradicate the students' illusions about Lumen Academy. An unshaven man asks if the students think they can save anyone in a world where lives come and go with the snap of a finger. A girl with a short haircut asks the professor if the students, as comrades, should not protect each other. It is reported that in front of us is Nella Carvin from the Night Division, who has the attribute of healing. Herod says that all this is not true. You can only rely on yourself. Sitting under an umbrella, the man calmly explains to the students that you can only think about helping someone if you have enough strength to overcome any danger. He asks the girl why she thought she could help someone. We see a raised hand. Its owner declares that she is confident in herself. Sipping juice, the professor asks if it is possible to test her abilities in this case. He asks the girl to create a fireball. It turns out that the initiative was taken by the magic knight Ileana Layden. Herod is holding a bag of juice. He asks if the girl is the only one capable of this. You can't even kill an ant with such a fireball. Ileana generates a bright fire sphere in her hands. Two sources of bright flame appear next to it. The girl asks the professor to comment on this. We see streams of fire. Herod states that the girl can not only maintain two balls, but also double their power. Closing his eyes, the professor says that this is worthy of respect. A small green sphere appears above his finger. Herod suggests that the girl hit this little one with her spell. We see the tiny creature with green hair in question. It jumps up and appears above the head of the girl, who is holding two fireballs in her hands. The tiny creature, giggling, touches the student's nose. Ileana grinds her teeth in disgust. She throws her fireballs at the green creature. Herod, with his arms folded, asks what the point of strength and quantity is if the girl can't even hit the target. Maybe the students will finally understand that they all lack efficiency in using their skills. They need to hone them and surpass themselves. We must not forget this under any circumstances. Two boys listen attentively to their teacher. Herod, smiling, declares that until someone catches his sylph, the lesson will not end, so the future heroes of Lumen Academy will have to try hard. We see Leo's profile. The boy thinks that the teacher's manner of speech is completely rude, but he speaks the truth. Maybe he should get involved now. Herod, sitting under an umbrella, looks at the back of a young man. We see his legs sticking out from under the umbrella. Herod encourages the hero. The boy runs forward. The professor expresses the hope that in front of him is not as empty-headed as the fictional hero Kyle. The students are trying their best to catch the little green creature. We see a leg that is emitting jets of red energy. Someone is accelerating very seriously, leaving a bright red trail behind them. It becomes clear that it is Leo, who is moving forward with a serious expression on his face. The professor says that the guy can show him that he really is the first true all-rounder in 3 divisions. Carr and Chelsea are sweating profusely. The girl notices that the little one they are hunting is incredibly fast. The guy does not understand how they can catch her at all. Leo is rushing forward. We see the same action from a different angle. The hero jumps up and ends up behind the green creature. We see that he has almost reached the sylph with his hand. He seems to be completely perplexed. The hero has a smile on his face. We see red and black jets between his fingers. The sylph looks down in fear. Some fast guy appears and grabs the green creature in his hand. He lands on the lawn a short distance from the hero. A young man with a frowning face holds a squeaking sylph tightly. Someone claps their hands. We see a long-haired blonde man who declares that the students of Class 5 can learn a lot from Class 1. It is reported that in front of us is Sejin, the head of Class 1 of Lumen Academy, second in the evaluation of graduate efficiency. Herod, closing his eyes, leans back in his chair. He offers this teacher to teach his students in his place. The professor calmly sucks from a bag of juice. We see a note that he is first in the evaluation of graduate efficiency. Sejin looks at his colleague in bewilderment. In front of us are 3 students. Carr asks in surprise if they can really see a gap between the pillars of Lumen Academy. The hero asks him again in surprise. The red-haired comrade declares that these two have been working for the good of the academy for 20 years. As far as he knows, Aina Landiu, Yura Marin and Lenhors value them very much. Nella asks the guy in surprise where he got such information. Carr, smiling happily, shouts that he is an expert in this matter. The guy laughs somehow unnaturally. Chelsea is ready to puke from disgust. Sejin, smiling, stands in front of his colleague sitting in a chair. He says that he does not understand what Herod was thinking when he took over the class of losers. A blue ball appears in the hand of this teacher. Sejin says that he will soon find out the reason. The young man holds out his hand and requests a competition between classes 1 and 5. He suggests a competition in Buster, the oldest ball game practiced at Lumen Academy. Herod, his mouth slightly open, looks at his colleague. He gets up from his chair and declares that Sejin is a real genius. The teachers hold each other's hands. Herod says that the best learning is a direct confrontation. Sejin declares that Class 1 will still win. His colleague collapses back into his chair. He declares that it is no big deal. The main thing is that Sejin continues the lesson for him. The teacher of class 1 is beside himself with rage. He does not understand how he can lose on grades to such an obvious idiot. His students think that the professor looks pathetic right now. Sejin loudly addresses class 5. Herod, with his legs crossed, sits in front of his students. He tells them that he is giving them a rare opportunity to practice their skills. They will have a buster match with class 1. One of the students asks again, surprised. We see the teacher's hand, which is resting on the armrest. He declares that he has one more thing to remind his students of. Herod, glaring at the students, declares that if they lose, they will all be expelled. The students look at their teacher in amazement. They stand in front of the professor, who is sitting on a chair under an umbrella. One of the young men asks if the professor is serious. It's only the first lesson. One of the girls notices that there are 3 top students in class 1. Herod indifferently states that these are the students' problems. They just need to try hard. The boy and girl look at the teacher with concern. He rests his head on his hand and says that they have nothing to worry about because their team is headed by the class monitor himself. The hero looks calmly at Herod. We see the professor's left eye. He offers the boy to assemble a team of 6 people with whom he will play busters. In front of us is the hero's right eye. Leo thinks that Herod is essentially testing him, but he is not doing this because he dislikes him. We see the young man's back. He thinks that at Lumen Academy many students lose their enthusiasm after the first week, and this is not at all surprising. Professor Herod, as it seems to the hero, wants him to give the losers from class 5 self-confidence. We see the hero's face again. Sejin raises his staff. Leo thinks to himself that a breakthrough is needed in the match. We see the green field from a bird's eye view. The hero thinks that winning this match will raise the spirits of the entire class. We see representatives of class 1 of Lumen Academy, and we recognize Celia among them. Now in front of us is the class 5 team, which, in addition to the hero, also includes Car and Chelsea. The boy turns to the blonde and asks why everyone is so embarrassed. The girl says with concern that the young man has apparently never heard of busters before. We see a hexagon with a figure holding a flaming ball. Chelsea says that it is a combat sport traditional for the academy. Leo asks if this is not an ordinary ball game. Car, leaning towards the hero, says that it is not an ordinary one at all. It is a very dangerous ball game. Someone calls out to Chelsea. The girl looks at the one who did this. She is asked why she looks so scared. Celia, smiling, wonders if the girl has already resigned herself to inevitable defeat. Chelsea indignantly shouts that she is not scared at all. Moreover, she will not allow herself to lose to a representative of the Zerdinger family. Chelsea opens her mouth wide. Leo hugs his comrades and tells the girl not to be afraid. They will not lose. Celia raises her index finger and angrily tells the hero that she will show him the fruits of her training. Chloe Mueller is in front of us. She says that she will not lose this time. Sejin calls the competitors from each class to the arena. The hero turns to his comrades and asks who of them is going with him. We see someone's leg. Chelsea and Ileana Layden are in front of us. The blonde says that she really wants to put these upstarts in their place. Her friend says that since they are all facing expulsion, she will direct all her anger to achieve victory. They need to show the professor what they are made of. We see 2 more competitors. Someone says that Car has also been included in the team. The young man who was just named looks out from behind the back of the comrade standing in front of him in surprise. He asks why. Leo calmly tells the long-haired professor that class 5 is ready. He replies that this is very good, in which case we can begin. Sejin throws the balls. He throws one of them high into the air. We see the hero and his team members around him. We now see the captain of class 1 and his comrades. The students reach for the thrown-up ball. Sejin shouts that the game is starting. 2 hands reach for the blue ball. A bright yellow trail is visible in the air. Out of nowhere, the announcer declares that everything is going well and class 1 makes the first move. The hero appears next to his team member and asks him to explain the rules of the game. We see 2 tall pillars and a circle between them, into which a blue sphere flies. The guy who was asked the question declares that the rules of the buster are simpler than they seem. You need to fill the ball with aura and throw it into the hoop without touching it with your hands and feet. The first one to get a 2-point advantage wins. We see a young man with his finger raised. It is reported that this is Tide Marcoa from the summoning unit. Someone shouts that it is close and to get ready. We see a clenched fist. Car raises his hands in surprise. A flash and a ball flying away are visible in front of the student. The sphere is rushing towards the hero. It falls at his feet and the guy has to jump back. Car is frozen in place. We see a yellow sphere above his head. Leo is squatting on the lawn. The students raise their hands and loudly greet the handsome guy, who they believe to be Duran Moira. Now we see 2 upset students. Tide sadly says that Professor Herod will probably really expel them all from the academy. The hero looks at him and asks how else to get a point. The guy answers that there are 3 ways. We see the markings in the balls. Tide explains that if the ball flies out of the line during the opponent's throw, the guy is unable to finish. Someone shouts loudly, warning the interlocutors about the danger. The guy opens his mouth in fear. Leo and Carr look at something in surprise. The ball crashes with all its force into Ileana Layden. Someone calls her loudly. Celia, smiling sarcastically, asks the members of the opposing team what they are whispering about. Shouldn't they be concentrating on the match? Leo and Tide are helping a girl who is lying on the green grass. Tide looks at the hero and says that you can't personally hit or block a player, but the third way to earn a point is to disable a player with a ball. That is, you can only attack each other with a ball here. We see a blue ball lying on the grass. The hero takes it in his hand. He thanks the guy for explaining. Smiling, the young man says that it's his turn now. In front of us is an information window about the match status. It says that Ileana Layden is disabled. Above the teachers' heads, we see a large board where this information is duplicated. Sejin looks thoughtful. The teacher knows that a team of players with a fire attribute of high destructive ability has the greatest potential in busters. In front of us is Celia, holding a yellow sphere. Sejin thinks that the Zerdinger flame is the most powerful among the famous families. Herod, who is sitting in a chair next to his colleague, yawns. Sejin tells him that he agreed to the duel despite the fact that Celia Zerdinger is competing in Class 1. It is unclear what Herod wanted to achieve, but his class will be incredibly difficult to defeat. Sejin looks angrily at his colleague and asks him if he has really forgotten how to speak like a human being. Herod looks at him over his sunglasses. He asks if his colleague remembers his first student from that very Zerdinger house. We see a slender girl. Sejin says that, of course, he cannot forget her. This is the Empress of the Buster game. We see the professor's overgrown chin. The professor says that the son of that very Empress is competing in Class 5. Sejin looks at his colleague incredulously. We see blue flags over a stadium. In front of us are 2 young men. One of them says that they are doomed. The other wonders how they were accepted into Lumen Academy. We see someone's eye. Its owner asks if it will really end that quickly. Faint tongues of flame appear in the air. Celia, with her hands on her hips, tells someone that he seems to have finally collected his thoughts. Leo, surrounded by tongues of flame, holds a blue sphere in his hands. A loud voice warns of danger. The young man prepares to throw the ball in his hand at his opponent. Leo swings and does just that. The projectile flies and hits something, scattering debris around. We see a huge block of ice with a hole in it. In front of us is Chloe. Smiling, the girl tells the hero that while she is in goal, a goal. It turns out that Leo is standing right next to her. He asks if the girl wanted to tell him that it is impossible to score a goal against her. The hero raises his fist, a hole gapes in the ice. Leo strikes. Chloe looks at someone in confusion. Sejin looks at what is happening in front of his eyes in amazement. The professor thinks that the guy's sense of smell in battle is simply incredible. Herod does not smile, but he looks pleased. The students sitting in the stands enthusiastically support Leo Plove and his Class 5. A smile appears on Professor Sejin's face. He says that everything is clear to him. The real game has begun. In front of us is Celia, the score is 2-1. A ball flies to Carr, the score is 4-5. Now in front of us is Chelsea, the score is 7-6. A yellow sphere flies into Carr. The projectile throws another young man, the score is 9-10. Chloe generates jets of white energy. Duran swings the sphere to throw it at someone. He does. The ball flies straight at Carr. We see the fast-moving projectile up close. The young man puts his hand in front of the ball. He grabs it with both hands. Someone calls out to the boy. We see the young man's legs. Carr, giggling, holds the blue sphere in his hands. The boy says that his mana is running out anyway, and the hero should do the rest. The ball bounces off the green grass. Chelsea and Ileana take the red-haired boy aside. They praise him. We see the scoreboard. Someone shouts that the score is now 10-10. Match point is being played. But Class 1 still has 3 top students left. Someone's hand reaches for the blue sphere. Leo stands with the ball in his hand. Someone says that there is only Leo on Team 5, and the enemy has a big advantage. Chloe looks resolutely at her opponent. She says that she may not have enough knowledge of magic theory, but she will not lose in this game. It seems like the girl is cloning herself. Leo kneels down. Celia and Duran are very determined. Someone is loudly encouraging the hero. We see someone's leg with a green leaf hanging over it. There is a trace of a jump in front of us. The opponents look at the hero in bewilderment. They are amazed at his speed. Leo rushes forward. Celia, whom he has just run past, looks back in fear. The girl screams that the guy is going to score. She asks Chloe to stop him. We see the blonde's right eye. She thinks that the guy is using an illusion spell. It's kind of petty, but where is the real Leo? The girl's eye is shown in closer view. She sees many identical figures with white hair. Chloe looks ahead in shock. We see her kneeling, with round game goals and a bright sun visible above her head. The girl looks thoughtfully to her right. She says that this is the magic of the stars. Leo is holding a green leaf in his hands. Chloe asks how a human can use an elven spell. The scoreboard shows the score 11-10. The announcement that Class 5 has won is heard. We see a bird's eye view of the stadium. The students' shouts of the hero's name can be heard above. Two young men happily embrace. One of them says that they will not be expelled, and that is real happiness. The other one says that he can already imagine the way home. We see two professors. Sejin cannot understand how his team lost. Herod suggests that it is most likely a matter of motivation. The members of the losing team are heartbroken. Sejin puts his hand on his head and sighs heavily. We see his legs. The teacher extends his hand to the girl sitting on the grass. He asks if she is upset about the defeat. Sejin pulls Chloe to her feet and says that since the match is over, they should greet their opponents regardless of the result. He says that the team worked hard to snatch a victory for Class 1. Chloe looks at her teacher with devoted eyes. We see two more members of the team. Sejin explains to them that they need to stand tall for those who cheered for their friends and those who gave it their all in the arena. The professor looks to his left. The girl and boy clench their fists. They say their professor's name. Not far from Sejin and his guys, Herod is aping. He calls the losers losers and demands that they come over and finish everything properly. Sejin calls his colleague an idiot. We see the roof of the stadium. Someone says that both classes worked hard. In front of us are Celia and Duran. The speaker says that the students from Class 1 showed their talents. Now we see the members of the opposing team, including the hero. They hear that Class 5 was able to hold out until the very end, giving it their all. We see that Sejin is giving a speech. He says that Class 5 made good use of their opportunities, trying to get out of the situation. The professor hopes that the students will continue to work hard and compete with each other. He calls on the opponents to shake hands. The students do as the teacher asks. Celia says that Chelsea lasted longer than she thought. The blonde praises the brunette for being as nimble as a squid. Carr, smiling, shakes Duran's hand. He laughs cheerfully and tells the prince that the victory is theirs. Duran looks angrily at the overly cheerful guy and he falls silent. Chloe looks down sadly. Someone tells her that it was cool. We see a hand extended for a handshake. The hero stands in front of the girl and says that she lacks just a little experience. Just a little more and she will become an outstanding sorceress. Chloe, with tears in her eyes, asks if the guy is laughing at her now. Leo smiles, but does not understand what the girl means. She resolutely looks at the hero. She thinks that one day she will definitely defeat him. The opponents shake hands. A month later, 3 students are sitting at a table. Carr asks the hero and Chelsea what club they want to join. Leo brings a cup to his lips and declares that he plans to start his own club. Carr asks again, surprised. The blonde, meanwhile, angrily yells at the red-haired guy to observe manners. Chelsea, smiling, turns to the hero. She declares that if he starts a club, she will definitely join it. Carr, surprised, asks what kind of club it is. We see the backs of the heads of the 2 blondes. Leo says that it will be a hero research society. The students sitting at the table with him unanimously ask the same question. Leo declares that he would like to thoroughly investigate the truth about the hero of the origin, whose name was Kyle. We see the figure of this character. Someone says that he is just a relic of the past, a fake hero. Carr, smiling, suggests that no one will join this club. Chelsea raises her hand. She understands that she can be alone with Leo. A girl shouts loudly that she is going to join the club. One of the students points to the window. Loud shouts are heard that they are back. Carr gets up from his seat and looks out the window. He says that it really was supposed to happen today. Chelsea asks in surprise what is going on out there. The students look at something excitedly. Someone says that this is the day the 5th years return from clearing the dungeon. We see tired students walking. Fragments of the hero protocol are scattered all over the world. In front of us are chains, debris, and a nice hexagon. From time to time, the fragments spill out into the world and form dungeons. They are called hero dungeons. The upper years of Lumen Academy clear them, returning fragments of the hero protocol. The hero and his comrades look at the upper years. The students' journeys can last from a week to a month. In front of us is a smiling Riene. The hero remembers that his mother went through all this too. Chelsea, clutching her fist to her chest, excitedly declares that these are the best students of Lumen Academy. Carr, who is standing next to her, coughs into his fist. In front of us is a smiling brunette with a red tie. The girl says that the muscular guy from the east is Lai Jamua. Now we see a mulatto with glasses. The southerner next to him is Toruyen. The third is a blonde guy in a hoodie. It is reported that the pale guy is Ulta. Carr, thoughtfully rubbing her chin, looks out the window and says that she does not see the highlight of the program. Leo, surprised, asks what highlight they are talking about. Someone's hand falls on the guy's shoulder. Carr, meanwhile, says that he means the top student of the academy, the president of the student council, whose name is Reese. The red-haired guy turns to his friend to say something, but does not find him behind him. The young man, surprised, asks where he went. The hero is pulled by the hand. The young man asks Celia what this is all about. This is beyond all bounds. The girl lets go of the boy's hand. She says that he should definitely go with her to a certain place. Leo asks in surprise where exactly. Celia turns around and says that they need to go to the city. The student council president wants to meet the hero. Leo asks in surprise why this person would look for him. Celia sighs and says that the hero does not understand how everything works here. He will see everything for himself when they arrive at the place. The boy and the girl are sitting at a table in a cafe. Celia says that she is very interested in why the guy who invited them chose this place to meet. The hero says that at least it smells delicious here. A smile appears on the girl's face. She throws herself on someone's neck. The young man who enters says that he is glad to meet Leo Plove. He says that he has heard about the hero, who turned out to be an academic generalist. In front of us is a handsome young man with red eyes. It is reported that this is 5th-year student Reese Sertinger from the Night Division, the student council president. We see a fork and knife. The students are sitting at the table. Reese asks if everyone liked the treat. Leo replies that he liked everything. The upperclassman looks at his sister in bewilderment. He asks what's wrong. Celia says that she is trying this dish for the first time. The girl puts a piece of food in her mouth. She says with admiration that it is very tasty. Her brother laughs and says that he has always wanted to take her to this restaurant. Reese asks the hero if he is his aunt's son. Leo asks in return if the guy knows his mother. Folding his hands in front of himself, the young man replies that he saw her a couple of times when he was very young, and she was also quite a famous person at the academy. Leo, looking at his new acquaintance, asks again in surprise. He says that Rihanna has many heroic deeds to her credit. For example, she openly stated that the desserts in the dorm cafeteria are disgusting. We see the red eyes of the hero's mother. Reese tells us that Rihanna gathered the students back then and stormed into the principal's office with them. We see how it all happened. Celia asks in bewilderment if it was her aunt who was behind this famous event. Reese happily confirms this guess. In front of us is an empty plate. The brother and sister are happily talking. The hero thinks that the guy is called the strongest in Lumen Academy for a reason. It's only a matter of time before he becomes a hero. Reese slightly raises his left hand. The guy gets up from his chair and happily asks if the guests are ready to try desserts. Celia claps her hands and says yes. The young man reaches into his inside pocket for his wallet. He says he will go and pay and his guests can go ahead. Reese, with Leo standing behind him, seems perplexed. He has a translucent object in his hand. The guy looks at it and asks the only question, why? We see a board covered in incomprehensible symbols. There are legs on the table. Someone turns to Professor Herod and says that he wants to ask a question. The teacher, with the word self-study written on the board behind him, allows student Eliana Layden to ask what he calls another stupid question. The girl stands up, raising her hand above her head. She asks why they don't elect a class monitor. Lowering her hand, the girl says that all the other classes have already elected them. Carr, sitting next to her, confirms that this is indeed the case. Herod cleans his ear with his little finger. He says that he has completely forgotten about this formality. The professor says that it should be Leo. The hero looks at the teacher in surprise. Eliana gets up from her chair in anger and asks why the hero should take this place. Carr asks if the election is not done by voting. A huge stack of papers falls on the table. Someone asks the class monitor to sort the papers. Eliana opens her mouth indignantly. Resigned to her fate, she sits down. A loudspeaker hangs on the wall above the student's head. The announcer announces that classes will be held in the hero world today. First-year students should get ready and go to the appropriate classroom. We see students sitting at their desks. The announcement is repeated. Leo asks Herod if they can all go. He snaps his fingers. He says that this is exactly what he expected from the class monitor. Students are standing in the corridor. We see the hero and his red-haired friend. Chloe is standing in front of them. One of the guys greets the girl and says that she looks tired. A beauty approaches Carr and asks if he has any potions to relieve fatigue. She will buy everything he has. The young man hands the girl the vials. Looking at the customer with embarrassment, he declares that this is all he has with him. The hero asks the blonde if she is overexerting herself. After all, the school year has only just begun. Chloe empties one of the vials. She wipes her mouth with the back of her hand. The girl turns away and declares that she is perfectly fine. Carr and Chelsea look at their classmate with concern. The red-haired guy declares that this is something out of the ordinary. After all, she already has the highest score in magical theory. The girl says that Chloe has a reason to worry. We see two students at a magical formation. Chelsea declares that as soon as Leo catches up with modern trends in magic, he will surpass Chloe in magical theory as well. Carr asks in amazement what's wrong with second place. Chelsea looks at him like he's an idiot and asks if he's really that stupid. She's a canon sorceress. We see a staff, a quill with an inkwell, and more magical information. Chelsea says that she's a combat mage herself, so a 2 in theory won't upset her too much, but for a future employee of the Magic Tower, gaps in knowledge are unacceptable. It's a matter of honor. Chelsea, looking at Carr in surprise, asks how he can be called a mage if he doesn't know all this. He answers, smiling, that it's very simple. He's an ordinary practitioner. Raising his left hand, the guy reminds us that he already successfully makes a living from this. We hear someone calling for us to die. Chloe sadly clutches a book to her chest. Someone wipes leaves with a rag. We see the back of a gray-haired old man's head. Kalyan Badian is very worried about something. He asks if the damaged protocol page really reacts. In front of us is a box with something white inside. Someone asks if it is true that the heroic protocol page reacted. Kalyan Badian is sitting at the table. Reese is standing in front of him. The young man states that the page is so damaged that it should not react at all. However, he clearly observed it, and there were no relics nearby. The old man, whose profile we see, asks if there was a reaction after those events. Reese replies that there was none at all. One of the interlocutors takes the box in his hands. Kalyan looks closely at the shard. He says that all of this needs to be sorted out. The old man states that the guy recently returned and is probably very tired. He thanks him for his excellent work. Reese puts his hand to his chest and bows. Kalyan slams the box shut and calls Alina. The girl enters the office, puts her hands behind her back and says that she is listening to the director. Kalyan Badian hands her the box. He asks her to take it to the other exhibits in the Origin Hall. Joint classes for first-year students are about to begin. Alina declares that she understands everything. Kalyan approaches the window. He thinks that sometimes even such tiny fragments begin to react. The reaction most often occurs when the hero mentioned in the protocol is nearby. In front of us is Leo in an open box with a shard. The auditorium of Lumen Academy. Joint classes for first-year students. On the stage there is a podium, behind which stands a girl. It is announced that in front of us is Arshian Nier, the homeroom teacher of Class 8, a teacher of first-year students. She asks the students to remain silent. Meanwhile, the students continue to chat. Arshian begins to get angry. One of the students looks at the teacher in surprise. She declares that if the students value their skins, a toothy monster is visible above Arshian's head. The girl screams at the students to shut their mouths and calls them bastards. The professor asks which of the young rascals is itching to die. Arshian, seen behind the podium, picks one of the students and asks if she should start with him. The professor calls the students disobedient idiots. We see that she is holding the microphone to her mouth. One of the students screams loudly. Arshian calms down. She says that she is glad that the room has become quiet. Standing behind her podium, the teacher waves her hands and thanks the students. One of the students is shaking in fear. He thinks that he has seen all this many times before, but each time he is scared like the first. Leo, meanwhile, calmly looks at the girl. He understands that before him is a spiritualist. Even in his past life, specialists in this field were very difficult to find. A dagger appears in Arshian's hands. She declares that the lesson will be continued in the heroic class for freshmen. We see the weapon up close. The professor says that after the appearance of the hero protocol in this world, there were reasons for the creation of entire clans of heroes. She states that in order to open the hero's world, an item with a deep connection to that hero is needed. We see a dagger, books, a building with spires, and a couple of crests. Arshian explains that this is why the world is easiest to open for the descendant of such heroes, and Lumen Academy, which holds the hero protocol, maintains contact with the families of heroes, although there are, of course, political reasons. She would say that it is a relationship like a chest and a key. Leo looks at the teacher, smiling. He thinks that she explains it very interestingly. Arshian asks if everyone now understands the importance of classes in the hero world. A girl enters through the open door. We see a riot of different types of energy. The students answer that they understand everything. Arshian continues to share information with the students. Standing at the lectern, she states that hero classes are necessary as they help to learn more about both the hero world and the heroes themselves. In their senior years, students will have to choose a favorite hero whose power they want to inherit, as well as clear the page from their world. A girl walks into the classroom and approaches the professor. She hands the teacher a small box. Arshian tells the students that it is a fragment of the hero protocol that the 5th years of Lumen Academy retrieved for them during a recent cleansing mission. The students, who see the item on the screen behind the professor, hum with delight. Arshian lifts the lid of the box. The students stare at it, mouths open. The professor closes the lid. She says that they will soon be testing the fragment. 2 students stand in front of us. One looks bored, the other is surprised. Arshian, smiling, asks the students to share their thoughts on what kind of heroes they would like to become. Celia raises her hand. She states that she would like to become a knight who surpasses all previous generations of heroes in her family. The professor, amazed, states that this is truly a great goal. Chloe stands up next. She says that she would like to write a book containing her personal spells. Another student stands up. Carr punches himself in the chest and declares that he would like to support the heroes in their battles in every way. The professor declares that student Carr Thomas wants to become a pillar of the heroic world, and this is truly wonderful. The red-haired guy listens to his teacher's words with a satisfied look. Leo gets up from his chair and, looking at Arshian, declares that his goal is to completely get rid of Erebos. The professor closes his eyes. Carr looks at the hero in surprise. It turns out that Herod and Sejin are present in the class. Arshian says ironically that it was simply amazing. She asks the next student to speak. Leo angrily slams his fist on the table. Two guys mockingly discuss what they just heard. One of them says that the hero sets too high goals for himself. The second, smiling, says that the class monitor can still think on a completely different level. In front of us again are Herod and Sejin. The long-haired blonde asks his colleague what he thinks about this. He replies that he got goosebumps. The guy is clearly not one to throw words around. We see Herod's profile and strange figures above his head. He thinks that centuries have passed since Erebos was broken into several parts, which were subsequently sealed. However, there were also cases of its resurrection. Even one fragment sometimes caused a catastrophe, and Leo says that he wants to get rid of Erebos completely. We see the sad eyes of the professor. Arshian suggests reading the fragment of the hero protocol obtained in the dungeon. The girl holds the open box in her hand. She states that after this, each class will have to guess who the notes are about. Then they will move on to a training sweep in the hero world. In front of us are Herod, Sejin, and a couple of dark figures. Arshian specifically notes that professors will be observing the lesson in case of unforeseen circumstances, so the students should not do anything strange. The students indicate that they understand everything. One of the girls straightens her tie and says that it has finally happened. In front of us are two more students. Nella Carbon says that this is the first time she has touched the hero protocol. The blonde guy sitting next to her says that he is very nervous. Arshian raises her head. She says that first, the class monitors of each class should come forward. In front of us is Celia. Now we see Leo. Third in line is Abad Llewellyn. Fourth is Chen Zia. The students stand in front of the professor, who holds an open box. Arshian states that this time 2 fragments of the protocol were obtained at once, but of course only one will be used in the lesson. The second piece is too small, but both will be shown so that everyone knows that such things also exist. In front of us are 2 open boxes at once. The hero reaches out his hand for a fragment. Arshian calls out to him in surprise. Leo takes the fragment in his hand. Streams of yellow energy appear next to it. It is reported that the hero protocol is opening. The young man stares at the fragment. In front of us is an information board with the words world and chapter. Huge magical formations appear under the feet of those gathered. Sejin asks in amazement if the outpouring is happening. The students and teachers in the audience look at the energy raging around them. We see the board with the words world and chapter again. We see large stones and dead monsters underneath them. One of the girls screams in fear that she sees corpses. Herod, with Chen Zia visible in front of him, shouts for the students to be on guard as this is a heroic dungeon. Sejin extends his right hand to the side and addresses his colleague. He shouts that there are walls of some kind of fortress visible there. Leo looks at the powerful fortress. He thinks that this is the last line of defense and the last bastion of hope in the era of catastrophes. The walls of Gardaslin, if this is the right time. In front of us is the hero's profile. Addressing Kyle, he says that everything is so, and his wish was very stupid. The guy hears the answer that it was truly idiotic. A woman approaches Herod and one of the students from behind. We see her face. She declares that they will save the world. Leo, half of whose face is covered by hair, looks at the woman. Standing a short distance from her, he calls her Lysanas. The woman smiles, narrowing her eyes. Someone shouts in bewilderment, "What happened at all?" Leo stands next to the shocked Arshian. Chen Zia, her eyes wide with surprise, asks the professor what she just saw. Herod, holding his left hand out in front of him, shouts that classes are cancelled. He asks everyone to remain calm and leave the Great Hall immediately. The students, discussing what happened, leave. We see the hero. He looks at the white shard he is holding in his hand. The guy realizes that this is his Kyle protocol. Herod, his arms folded, looks at the young man. We see a richly decorated room with a podium. Someone screams deafeningly, expressing their bewilderment. We see several students gathered around a table. Someone asks the hero if he really saw the Queen of Wisdom. Chelsea declares that this is simply unbelievable. This is worth a lot. So it really was a fragment of the heroic protocol of Lysanas. Ileana raises her fist. She declares that if she were the class president, she would have acted completely differently. The hero, according to her, missed a great opportunity. Car, smiling, declares that one can dream as much as one wants. The next second, the girl starts beating the guy. She asks whether to bury him or if he will get out of here somewhere far away himself. Herod stands in the doorway, arms folded on his chest. He declares that he has come to punish the noisiest ones, and they, it turns out, are sitting in his class. We see the professor's face. He tells the students that they can choose either self-study or expulsion. The teacher loudly slams the door. Silence reigns in the classroom. The hero sits thoughtfully at the table. He does not understand why his hero protocol is so strange. Even the name of the world and the chapter are not displayed in it. We see the plate that the young man is thinking about. In front of us is a vague image of a girl. Leo remembers the words that they will save the world. The guy thinks that his hero protocol seems to have been deliberately destroyed by someone. In front of us is a red eye. The young man thinks that the hero protocol is, in fact, an object containing a particle of the hero's power. And if someone does not want this hero to have followers, red and black streams of energy and the eye of some evil creature are visible above the head of the young man. Leo remembers the name of his sworn enemy, Erebos. The hero understands that he must find out why his protocol is split. A month later, in front of us are the magnificent buildings of the academy. It is reported that this is the magical department of the educational institution. Lanhors points his thumb behind his back. He says that the task of the transfer exam will be either original or unique magic. Students sit at their desks and talk to each other. We see a set of multicolored energy bursts. Lanhors reports that original magic reflects the very personality of a particular mage. In the era of activation formulas, mages are no longer so eager for originality. A yellow sphere is visible behind the teacher. He says that, nevertheless, original magic is an excellent ace up the sleeve when it comes to a fight. In front of us is a long-haired blonde with a staff in her hand. The professor says that the star magic that the elves possess is, in fact, just a tiny fragment of the original magic. The only one who could use star magic was none other than the stargazer Luna. Leo and Chloe are sitting next to each other. We see the girl's serious face. The hero looks at the book lying on the table near him. It has a very beautiful cover. Chloe looks at the guy. She takes the book away from him. Leo glances at the girl. He realizes that she is hiding the book on magic. The teacher says that he is looking forward to the students' personal developments, and classes are over for today. Chloe is standing next to the other students. Leo comes up to her and takes her hand. He asks the girl to stop. Chloe looks at her classmate in surprise. The guy, smiling, offers to have lunch together. We see the girl's school bag. The hero thinks that she hid the book on purpose. Chloe pulls her hand away and angrily says that she doesn't have time for this if she wants to beat the hero in the next exam. Carr runs up and puts his hand on the hero's shoulder. He calls the guy a brat and asks how he dares to aim for the Ice Queen's place. Chloe remembers kneeling during the Buster match. She says that she has lost to the hero before, but when it comes to formulas, she has to be the best. It turns out that the girl has returned to the hero. Standing right in front of him, she declares that she will definitely win this time. Judging by the girl's face, she is very determined. Leo, smiling, asks if it would be rude for him to slack off towards the girl. Chloe looks at the guy carefully. He, smiling, extends his hand and offers to prepare well together. The young people shake hands. Carr looks in amazement at what is happening before his eyes. We see a tall tower. Leo stands at the base of a tall structure called the Hero Tower. The boy climbs the stairs, along which hang many portraits. The young man thinks that somewhere here must be the forbidden archives of Lumen Academy. If he finds them, he will find a clue about his missing heroic protocol. Two girls behind him are discussing the young man. They remember that this is the same first-year student and ask each other what this cutie is doing here. The hero hears someone calling him by his first and last name. Toru Yan is standing just above him on the stairs. The girl, in front of whose face we see a pink bubble, states that she has heard about the guy from Professor Lanhors. She says that she is glad to finally meet him in person. We are reminded that Toru Yan is a fifth-year student in the Magic Division. Leo bows and says hello. Toru sticks out her leg. She asks what business a first-year student has in the Hero Tower. The boy states that he has come to speak with the student council president. A rather strange smile appears on the girl's face. We see a very weak light at the end of the tower's tunnel. Toru states that if the boy chooses the Magic Division, great opportunities will open up for him. Leo replies that he already regularly attends magic classes. Toru smiles. Leo, standing in front of the girl, thanks her. He walks past her up the stairs. Toru finally expresses her hope that the boy will finally transfer to the Magic Division before the end of the semester. The girl turns around, smiling. The heroes are also looking at her over their shoulder. There is someone's leg in front of us. A little higher, by the elevator doors, there are students. Someone presses the button with the number 9. Leo can't get anything from the elevator control panel. The guy looks at the panel in amazement and asks why it doesn't work. Instead of the hero, another person presses the right button. He explains that you need to invest mana to activate the buttons. The hero looks at his interlocutor. He says that he is very glad to meet him. We see a cute guy. He asks the hero if this is the same first-year all-rounder who is also the class monitor. It is reported that in front of us is 5th-year Lai Jamua from the Night Division. Leo bows. He greets the elder. Lai asks what brought the guy to the hero tower. Leo, smiling, replies that he wants to talk to the student council president. Lai rubs his chin. He says that the first year is not even nervous in front of him. Coming to the student council office alone is real bravery. Leo says he never thought of barging in. Lai smiles and asks if the guy thought the night division was for him. Leo laughs. We see the sign for the student council office. The hero thinks he is at his limit, although he has not yet reached the main task. The young man knocks on the door. He tells the president that Leo Plove has arrived and asks if he can come in. They answer that he can. The hero opens the door. Reese is sitting at the table. He asks what the young man is doing here. We see the lower part of the hero's face. The guy approaches the table and says that he needs access to the Forbidden Archive. Reese looks at the first year with a serious expression and says that he understands perfectly well that the guy is not the type to joke. However, an ordinary student only has 2 ways to get in. We see a hand holding a book. Reese says that the first method is to clear the hero dungeon. This is usually done to return the hero protocol page to the source. Leo asks what the second method is. The student council president is sitting on his chair. He rests his head in his hands and says that the hero will learn about the second method if he joins the student council. The sun is shining above the clouds. We see a green stadium from a bird's eye view. It is reported that the day of the night division selection exams has arrived. We see a happily smiling car. He excitedly says that the day of the exams has arrived and a lot of guys have gathered. It is impossible not to bring popcorn to such a sight. Chelsea and Eliana look at the guy disapprovingly. The blonde says that Carr is a natural-born traitor. Her friend says that he is who he is. This guy would have definitely made it in life even without Lumen Academy. The hero turns his head in surprise. He tries to find Chloe, but does not see her. Someone shouts loudly that it's all starting. A teacher stands in front of the students. Ain, arms folded, announces the start of the first fight. Hall Snafe is called from class number 1. We see the face of this young man. Class 5 is introduced by Leo Plove. The hero takes this announcement calmly. Carr seems to have thought of something. He runs up to Sejin and calls out to him. The long-haired professor asks what's the matter. Carr, beaming with happiness, asks if the teacher would like popcorn and a drink. Sejin smiles crookedly. He asks the guy if he really thinks he'll buy it. It's better to offer it all to his colleague, whose name is Herod. Carr looks to his left in surprise. In front of us is Celia. The girl, arms folded in front of her face, begs the professor to buy everyone what the guy is offering. The student says that the popcorn looks very tasty. The students raise their hands and start chanting the professor's name. The teacher looks at them thoughtfully. His right eye is narrowed. He orders Carr to hand out a cup to all the students. The guy screams with delight. The hero and his opponent stand opposite each other. Leo says that he is lucky. He will finish the exam first. His opponent, sticking out his tongue predatorily, says that he seems to be underestimated here and he will regret it. It is reported that before us is Hall Snafe from the Night Division, a hereditary hero of the Snafe family. Above the green field of the stadium, we see the satisfied face of Carr, who reveals the intricacies of Lumen Academy. Selection test for the Night Division. After winning 5 duels, the participant moves on. The students discuss the upcoming fight. One of the girls asks what level of fighting skills her classmate has. The guy she asks the question to replies that Leo is an all-rounder. Perhaps there is some difference between him and the adherents of the only division after all. Hall is also considered the 3rd strongest in Class 1 after Celia and Duran Moira. Hall holds a spear in his hand. He starts swinging it around his body. The boy thinks that he is the arrogant idiot who hangs around Celia. Ain loudly declares that the winner will be the one who disables the opponent. The duel should be treated like a real battle. In front of us is the hero's red eye. In the distance, a majestic building with 2 flags can be seen. We see this building up close. Purple streams rise from it. This energy disturbs the hero. Chloe is sitting at a table and working under the light of a lamp. She is tearing up sheets of paper. The girl is incredibly angry. She says that she is failing. With her current skill level, she cannot create unique magic. The girl throws aside a book with a blue cover. Chloe imagines the hero and declares that she is not going to lose to him in the practical exam. Clenching her fists, the girl stands in front of a table covered with books. We see several books. Chloe is trying to figure out if this is enough to win. She really wants to win. The girl's eyes are shining with an excess of feelings. Leo looks up at the purple streams. Hall, smiling, is preparing to use his spear. He is very glad that he has such a carefree opponent. The guy thinks that Leo is caught. However, the spear flies past the hero's head. It is reported that Hall used the snake spear skill. Green streams swirl around the hero who dodged the attack. The tip is again aimed straight at the young man. Leo intercepts the spear. His opponent grinds his teeth from the tension and cannot understand where his opponent got such enormous strength from. Leo, angrily looking at his opponent, holds his spear. The young man pulls the weapon towards himself. Hall flies forward after his spear. Leo strikes his opponent in the jaw. He flies back a decent distance. Smiling, the hero asks if Hall called him careless. The enemy gets back on his feet. He tells the hero not to act all powerful. The game has just begun. It is reported that Hall is using the poison mist skill. Streams of green energy rise above the guy. He thinks that Leo does not know how to control the aura, and that such a deficiency cannot be compensated for by strength alone. Streams of fire rise above the hero's left hand. He thinks that the poison aura is incredibly interesting. Leo is surrounded by multicolored streams of energy. Hall, smiling, says that only Celia's flame can block such an attack for now. Leo, looking straight at the enemy, says that he seems to not understand something. The students who have met in battle stand opposite each other. The academy students, munching popcorn, vigorously support them. Durin, with his arms folded, watches what is happening. In front of us are Celia and Chelsea. The hero smiles. Celia doesn't understand when he managed to increase the power of his fiery aura. Leo and Hall Snafe are standing opposite each other. The latter realizes that the hero's flames are not inferior in level to the one that Celia has. The hero smiles. His opponent thinks that this idiot posing as a generalist can actually do this. Hall smiles too. He says that he was actually going to use it on Celia, but who knew that he would have to waste it all on Leo Plov. Hall puts out his hand. He uses the skill Snake Shackle. The snake wraps itself around the hero engulfed in flames. Hall looks around, smiling. He thinks that his spell works well, and mentally asks Celia how it feels for her to see this. The girl he is thinking about is sitting in the stance. Hall specially prepared this technique to catch her flames. Celia puts out her index finger. The snake wrapped around the hero is covered in bubbles. A moment later, it flies apart into nasty green streams. In front of us is Hall's eye. The guy thinks that this is simply impossible. He grabs his weapon to strike. Leo takes his sword out of its sheath. He delivers a sharp blow and knocks the spear out of his opponent's hands. The guy puts his weapon forward and says that he advises against getting distracted while its flame is still burning. Hall, gritting his teeth in anger, looks at his enemy. The winner is declared Leo Plov. Chelsea clenches her fists in joy. The students shout that they expected nothing less from Leo. Carr shouts that he knew they could count on him. The opponents disperse. Hall thinks that his opponent really knows how to do a lot. No wonder he is not inferior to Celia. Someone asks Hall if he is impressed. We see the young man's eye. A girl comes up to him and says that in any case, it was cool. The guy looks around, smiling. He is happy to hear these words. An announcement sounds throughout the stadium that Ileana Layden from Class 5 has now been called up to the court. The girl with red hair warms up her fists. She enthusiastically asks who her opponent will be. The girl is horrified to learn that she will have to fight Chen Zia from Class 10. The student is very scared. She asks why a top student was put against her. Chen Zia, smiling, walks forward. The two girls stand opposite each other. Chen Zia touches her fist to her palm and asks her opponent to be gentle with her. She makes exactly the same gesture and asks for the same thing. The command to start the fight sounds. We see someone's hand. Water jets appear around Chen Zia. Ileana jumps. She strikes with a sword, which seems to fly straight at Chen Zia. The hero, with his arms folded across his chest, looks at what is happening. He understands that it will hurt. Ileana, who is holding the sword, does not look very pleased. We see a mark from the jump. The girl with red hair is lying on the lawn. The announcer says that Chen Zia is the winner. The girl repeats the gesture we saw a little earlier. Ileana has a smile on her face. She is glad that she was not afraid to go up against this opponent. Leo says that the draw was not the fairest from the start, but if the girl had concentrated, she would have done even better. The announcer says that the next participant is Celia from Class 1. Two students are in front of us. Celia steps forward. It is announced that her opponent will be Durin Moira from Class 1. The young man frowns at the girl. She smiles and says that it will definitely be fun with this guy. Durin stares at his opponent. Carr is chewing popcorn. He passes the bucket to the hero and demands that the opponents begin the duel. Leo says that this match promises to be exciting. A loud scream is heard. The spectators look at the arena in shock. The girl and the guy put out their swords. Celia declares that it will now become clear who is the best knight in Class 1. Durin still frowns at her. We see the mark of the blow. It was aimed at Celia, but it seems that the girl managed to parry it. Durin looks at his hand. He asks if these are really all the skills of a top student. Carr, sitting next to the hero, asks who he is betting on. The young man answers that, apparently, Celia will win. He hears that he has no heart. In front of us is the girl's right eye. Leo thinks that the girl's look says a lot. The young man smiles. He thinks that Celia probably has a plan on how to turn the situation to her advantage. Durin rushes to attack. A bright yellow beam is visible next to the girl's head. The opponents exchange blows. Celia stands with her sword raised high. Streams of red energy are visible above the heads of the students. The spectators, whose silhouettes we see, shout that this is no joke anymore. Leo praises Celia, saying that she can use her brain. Car asks in amazement what is happening. The girl and the guy are standing opposite each other under the energy sphere. Leo says that the training ground for freshmen is quite small. The girl realized that there is no point in trying to keep up with Durin, so she used the size of the hall to her advantage. Inside this barrier, the guy will not be able to run like that anymore. Jets of fire roll over the young man. Celia, smiling, looks at him. Leo says that the heat also limits his vision. The girl was already good, but now she has become even cooler. Durin brings his fist to his face. He complains that he is very hot. Celia flies up to him from above. Gritting his teeth from the strain, Durin raises his hand. The girl grabs the blade with which he is armed. Smiling predatory, Celia declares that her opponent is caught. She hits him on the forehead with her head. We see the mark from the blow. Durin is lying on the grass. The announcer announces that Celia Zerdinger has won. The audience cheers enthusiastically. Celia waves her hand, telling her opponent that he needs to work on his physical strength. She extends her hand to the defeated one. The opponents shake hands. One of the spectators thinks that they are a very cute couple. The guy standing next to her decides to capture this picture. Someone takes popcorn from a bucket. Leo declares that Celia's training has paid off. Carr shouts at the girl that she is simply amazing. The professor standing behind the students declares that Celia really did win. He steps away from the guys and thanks the class monitor for the comments. The hero asks how long ago the professor eavesdropped on them. It is announced that the practical exam for the night division has come to an end. Here is a gallery with images of the students who showed the best results. Celia Zerdinger, 4 wins, 1 loss. Durin Moira, 4 wins, 1 loss. Chen Zia, 4 wins, 1 loss. Leo Plove, 5 wins, 0 losses. A week later, a written test in linguistics. The professor stands behind the lectern and declares that all the students have worked hard. He waves his hand and walks to the door, saying that they will now have to work even harder to avoid being expelled if they get a bad grade on the exam. The door slams shut. Eliana screams loudly, shaking her fists. She curses everything in the world, as she is very afraid of being expelled. 2 guys are standing next to Chelsea. They ask the girl to show them the answers. The blonde raises her finger and asks which of them will be the first. One of the young men shouts that they should start with him. The second one answers with exactly the same phrase. Leo puts his head in his hands. Someone asks him how the exam went. The hero raises his head and says that, in his opinion, it was quite successful. In front of him is a girl with pink hair. She says that even the class president, who seems to be able to handle everything, can sometimes make that face. Leo asks, surprised, what all this means. Smiling, the girl says that if something hurts, he should just let her know. She will heal him with her magic. Carr grabs his neck and pretends to be in great pain. He turns to Nella, says that his shoulders and back hurt a lot, and asks her to help him. Chelsea hits the trickster on the back with all her might. She asks if he will hurt if she does this. The blonde, with hearts visible above her head, asks the hero how he is doing with the practical challenge. The professor said that the guy almost never shows up for class. Leo, leaning his hand on the desk, says that he practiced on his own without being seen by anyone. Chelsea puts her hand to her chest. She states that it looks just like a hero and asks him where he thinks he will place in the summoning exam. We see the lower part of the young man's face. He looks at the girl and states that he will naturally place first. The day of the practical summoning exam. There is someone standing behind the podium overlooking the circular arena. He states that they have all gathered together again this year. The speaker welcomes everyone to the biggest event of the first semester for freshmen. It is the summoning race. The young man pulls the microphone to his mouth. It is announced that this is Runba Tess, a third-year student from Lumen Academy in the summoning house. Celia, with her arms folded, asks if this is really an exam. The boy sitting next to her states that the summoning race is an old and very popular tradition of the summoning house. Also, since it is one of the rare competitions that involves inter-house exchange, it is always on everyone's lips. Carr is holding a glass and a bucket of popcorn. We see 2 students. A young man complains about everyone being too crowded and noisy. It is very distracting and annoying. Leo is standing behind the 3 students. The boy continues to complain about how hard it is for him. We see the hero's face. Now we see the girl's eyes. Next to Chen Zia is a young man in a white shirt. Chelsea says that the hero showed exceptional skill in the practical night exam. Leo is warming up his hands. The girl asks how well he prepared for the practical summoning exam. Leo, continuing to warm up his hands, states that he is well prepared. Chelsea states that for someone who is supposedly well prepared, he showed up to class very little. We see a clenched fist. Its owner says that this is exactly how it is. The boy raises his left hand and demands that the hero go away if he is not going to take this subject seriously. Another young man shouts that he has never seen the hero with a summoned creature. The boy who is complaining about the noise and fuss raises both his hands and asks what is happening to everyone all of a sudden. The irritated young man with green eyes asks the boy not to side with the hero just because he is in the same class. Leo, according to him, does not care about their faculty at all. Chenzia looks to your right. She says that the atmosphere here is terribly tense, and this is before the exam itself has even begun. In front of us is Sen Liu from the summoning faculty, a representative of the Eastern continent. He tells the girl that she got good grades in the night faculty, so she does not need to worry about learning summoning at all. Chenzia tries to say something, but the young man standing next to her says that the students are too noisy. He steps forward. In front of us is Titan from the summoning faculty. He represents the southern continent and got the highest score in the entrance exam. The boy states that if anyone wants to brag about how much time they spent with their summoned creature, they should do it somewhere else and not around him. Sen Liu, gritting his teeth in irritation, asks the boy to repeat himself. Werden looks at the student resolutely. He says that he doesn't like hearing people talk about who spent more time with their summoned creature. It's not such an achievement to brag about. Sen Liu, smiling, points at the boy. He asks if he's not ashamed of the fact that he, too, hardly showed up for taming classes. A threatening expression appears on Werden's face. He states that he didn't go to classes because they weren't worth his precious time. He's not an idiot like the boy standing in front of him, who can't even handle a griffin properly. Sen Liu, hearing the insult, raises his fist and calls the young man a bastard. Someone else's fingers are visible on his hand. Leo looks Sen Liu straight in the eye and says that if he starts a fight before the exam starts, he will be punished and disqualified. Sen Liu pulls his hand away. The blonde looks at the hero and says that the atmosphere in the summoning department is currently very bad. Leo asks what is the reason for this. The young man replies that it is a department where, for natural reasons, there is a significant gap in skill between seniors and juniors. Since Leo and Chenzia, who have no achievements in summoning, are rated so highly, the second years have gathered them to talk. The seniors stand in front of the students, who bow to them. The guy says that the hero has never shown up for class either. Disgruntled students are seen next to the young man. Now the hero understands why his behavior seems so careless. However, he did not plan to do something half-heartedly. A hooded man looks at a student walking around the circular arena. He thinks that it is finally starting. A purple portal is seen next to him. Sen Liu is shrouded in a red glow. He thinks that he will face these impudent bastards in the exam and kill them all. The young man's eyes are shining with anger. Runbates happily announces that he will briefly explain the rules to everyone before the competition begins. A magic formation is visible above the heads of two students. The announcer says that first-year students of the summoning department can only use summoning skills during the exam. Even if a student has 2 classes, he cannot use aura or magic. After the exam begins, they will need to tame a griffin. The creatures in question are sitting in cages. We see the sunlit sea, and then a dark shore with waves rolling in. Runbates announces that they will need to pass the summoning island next and use the quiet lake as a turning point to return. In front of us are Werden and Chenzia. Now we see Chelsea and Sen Liu. Leo stands with his hand in his pocket. Runbates poses an intriguing question. Who will be the best in the middle of the first year in the practical exam on the summon? The students are preparing for the start of the competition. A teacher with an unusual hairstyle advises the newcomers not to be nervous, but to stick to what they have already learned during the classes. Anyone who panics and fails will be expelled immediately after the competition. The young people are very excited. They understand that they need to calm down. The teacher shouts loudly for the students to get ready for the start of the race. We see 2 guys. The command to start the race sounds. The students rush forward. One of them already has a bright yellow sphere glowing in his hands. He directs energy at the hero and Werden. The commentator does not understand what is happening. Most likely, the students of the summon faculty agreed in advance and joined forces against the class monitor Leo Plove and the best student of the South, Werden Titan. The hero raises his fist above his head to protect himself from the flow of energy. His comrade, who is already riding the griffin, calls out to the boy in alarm. Leo yells that there is no need to worry about him, and that the boy should just do what is required for the exam. Streams of fire swirl around the boy. The student riding the griffin apologizes. The spectators comment wildly on what they are seeing. One of them yells that this is all unfair and blames the students of the Faculty of Summoning. The second yells that everything is fine. Leo looks at his opponents. He knew that they did not like him, but they seem to have gone too far. The commentator laughs. He states that the students from classes 1-5 are mocking their opponents, but this is apparently a diversionary move. We see a riot of different types of energy around Werden. The commentator yells that at this very moment, the Werden player is dispelling elemental magic. The young man stands in front of the griffin. He flies up to the hero and asks him if he needs any help. Leo looks at him and declares that nothing is needed, he has everything under control. The griffin and its rider rise into the air. Chelsea looks from the stands at the hero standing in front of the only griffin left in the cage. She presses her hands to her chest in fear. The girl loudly shouts the young man's name. That's how this video ends. If you have sat through to the end, please don't forget to press the subscribe button and leave feedback. See you in the next video.